school committee meeting of February 11th, 2015, which is also our budget workshop. Calling the meeting to order at 5:07. I'm going to turn it over immediately to Michael for the budget overview discussion.
Thank you. So welcome everybody. It's great to have an audience here tonight. I hope that this meeting is first and foremost for the school committee to dive into the proposed budget that I unveiled back in the end of January. And so it's for them to really look at what I'm calling the big buckets of difference between FY15 and FY16. We have presenters assigned to those areas, and they will come up on your slides and present and talk to them. Hopefully the slides you'll find informative, but as we're going along, please, as you have questions, school committee members, ask those questions as we go along so that you get the answers. But also at the end, we'll have time, I think, to really explore more of those questions. And as always, what we don't have answers for you for tonight, we'll be back on February 25th, and we'll have that information available to you at that point. The budget document has changed ever so slightly since the one that you were that was first shared with you. So please be looking at the one that's in the packet for tonight, so that you're looking exactly word for word for the numbers that you will be talking about tonight. So without further ado, unless there are questions from the school committee, we're going to kind of jump right in. So the budget that I've proposed to you to meet the goals of the district improvement plan and the goals of the school improvement departments, or school improvement plans for each of the schools and departments, is rising 5.05%. The majority of that, as you will see as you go through those slides, is clearly articulated. And so we're looking at the sort of the 50,000-foot view of what the budget is. It's roughly a $2.5 million increase to over FY15, and so that's certainly a number that we want to concentrate on and look at as we eventually look at the affordability factor. But tonight is really about the needs of the district, moving our district ahead, creating that innovation, and addressing the needs of our students and faculty over time. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to George King, who's going to talk about system-wide, which he'll discuss.
Okay, thank you very much. And these costs are always one of the areas we have to be very cognizant of. So just an overall, if you just go to the next slide, just an overall view of it first, and I'll talk about a couple of areas specifically. But our insurance and benefits area is going up 3.22%, or $236,000. Our transportation area is going up 4%, or $64,000. And the high school's debt service is going down. There's a combination of our, as the bonds get older every year, it goes down about $20,000. And that is indicative of that. So to talk a little bit about where we're seeing these increases and decreases, if you go to the next slide, Alita, talking about our insurance. The Worcester County Retirement System, we saw a small reduction this year, about $10,000. I may have expected a little bit more based on the fact that I think their investment returns have been better the last couple of years, but it has been better than the $50,000 so increases we've seen in recent years. So it's a little bit of a reduction. I would, as I said, hope maybe a little bit more, but it worked out that way. Workers' compensation, this is an estimate right now, and right now I'm estimating a $27,000, 16% increase. It's really experience-based, and at the end of the year we're fully audited and our new rates are set. But it looks right now they'll probably be somewhere in that range. Experience just hasn't been as good this year, which sometimes happens the last couple of years, really. There's not one cause, just bad luck probably more than anything else with things happening. So that has a direct reflection on the premiums. Our property insurance is also going to increase this year. Most of that is, the market is trending, the property casualty insurance market is trending a little bit higher nowadays the last couple of years, especially for commercial exposures, which this would be considered. in general, we have not really been hurt by that. We're insured through Maya, which is the arm of the MMA, which we do our health insurance and our property insurance through, and it's a group of communities. So generally, we have not been hurt by the property insurance trend in the marketplace too much. But they did just recently revalue all our buildings, and the revaluing of the buildings, they brought them up in the total replacement value. So we're going to see an increase there. Again, this is estimated at this time, but I think that's a fair estimate given the increase we saw within this fiscal year based on the increase in the building value. The area that's always the most concerning, so to speak, is the health insurance. As we all know, that's always a potential budget buster. We've been doing a pretty good job with that in recent years through Maya. We're increasing this budget only 5%, so that is somewhat of a manageable increase. But it allows us for a 10% increase because of our experience this year. We estimate our surplus this year may be close to 5% because of the fact of the way we've been trending on it this year. So by only increasing the budget 5%, we're actually going to have about a 10% availability increase over this particular year. So that's a pretty good size increase, but that is the number that Meyer is, at least in the early going, recommended to us. We hopefully will have more details on that in the next few weeks. And if something changes dramatically, which I don't expect, that we have to get like a 6% increase, that might be an area we could reduce. But as of now, they have recommended to us that we carry the 10% increase, as they feel that would be what our increase will look like. Because even though we're in the major group for health insurance of all the other cities and towns, we are still rated against our own experience to some degree. So in other words, being in the big group allows us to cap certain expenses. So if we're on our own, we can be looking at sometimes increases based on that experience. Because when your group decides that we are, you're essentially rated on your own experience when you just are directly with the insurance company, like we used to be with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So on a bad year of experience, we could see rate increases of 17, 18, 20%, because it's really just the cost of our insurance. So in recent years, the trend of our group is not great. It's not, for whatever reason, it's not a great trend. So we tend to be on the higher end of Maya community's increases, but we also get a cap based on the fact we are in the group, and certain claims are capped at a certain number and that type of thing. So it's a complicated field. There's really little we can do about it, just simply the experience of the people, the medical experience of the people who are insured under our plan is just not quite as good for our demographic as we might hope. Our dental insurance will increase, we believe, around 8%, and that's where that is budgeted for. So that makes up the overall increase in the insurance area. Those are the major highlights of that. The other area in system-wide of note is the the transportation contract. We're going to see an increase just about 4%. This reflects us exercising the option year on our current contract. We're currently in a contract of 2 years with 2 option years. The first option year is 4%. At first, I hoped we would have been able to negotiate that down a little bit and actually pay less than that. But in order to accept an option year contract under the purchasing law, we have to have an idea of whether or not that's a reasonable market. In other words, we can't exercise this option at 4% if the going rate is considered to be like 10% below what we're paying now. It wouldn't be allowed in the purchasing law. So although we don't have to rebid this contract, we can exercise the option only if it's prevailing in the market. And that's for obvious reasons. They wouldn't want us unilaterally option, wouldn't be good purchasing to unilaterally do an option like the company or whatever if it was not fair market value. So we have to establish a market value. So what we did recently is we went out to bid with a similar contract for the purposes of establishing the market value, and frankly also we have to exercise this option 90 days before the expiration of the contract, which is July 1st. So we went out to bid and got a better rate. We could then consider that rate and possibly go to that company or that contract and not exercise the option. And there's really no real risk in that bid because of the fact we knew we already had an option in place at 4%, which is at least a somewhat controlled cost increase. So we went out to bid a couple weeks ago. The bids came in, and I got a little indication from other people that this was the case. The increase we only had one bidder, as a matter of fact. First student, our current people did not bid, and another local company we've had in the past did not bid. North Reading Transportation did bid. They're a pretty good-sized school bus contracting provider in Massachusetts, and their increase was 18% over our current cost. So therefore, by exercising this 4% option, we actually appear to be below the market rate. So not only is that, still 4%, but I think it's a good option for us this year. And we have one additional year option next year. So again, we'll have to gauge the market next year, and we have another 4% option next year. So this contract is serving us well at this point, because otherwise we would have been looking at a large increase. We pay about $300, just in the very low $300 a day per bus for our buses in the current contract. I talked to a district down 495 a little bit, a few miles to the south, and they recently went out for a bid. Also only got one bidder. Their current rate is somewhere in the high 200s, and their bid rate was in the high 300s. So they're going to be working on trying to negotiate that down a little bit, but they still expected to see a 20 to 25% increase. So it's a little counterintuitive to me, given the price of gas being down and things like that, but it doesn't seem to impact the contracts either way as much as you think. In other words, the gas prices have been high, it hasn't really driven the cost as high as you think, and vice versa. It does provide, we're only asking for a 4% increase here. It does provide for no additional buses, so we're still going to be scheduling over the 29 buses we have. The contract would allow us to add a bus, though. It's not, even though we're renewing the contract under the option, the number of buses is at our option, but we have to pay the extra daily rate. So obviously, an additional bus at $300 plus a day is a $50,000 or $60,000 investment. So even though, as we know, some of our routes are tight, we're going to certainly try to once again get by with 21 buses. I think that's it for the central office issues that of any significant change in costs.
Questions? Thank you, George. Monica Visco is
Right here.
going to go over the human resources aspects of our budget. It's obviously the biggest chunk of our budget.
Yeah, the whole budget is about human resources, because it's the biggest chunk of the budget. And these first couple of slides talk about this slide. So we're in the second year of a 3-year contract. There's a 2.25% COLA, 2% cost of steps. And again, the delta, when we presented the change in the collective bargaining, is caused by how many staff we have at the various steps. For the new positions, the first couple of slides are summaries or overviews of the new positions that are proposed in the budget. They're going to be followed by an Excel kind of spreadsheet presentation that shows the FTEs in this current year compared to the FTEs in FY16. So what the changes will be with these new positions and any other changes that are not new positions. So at the high school, we're proposing a 0.6 alternative education program teacher. This has been on the wish list of the high school for quite some time. It's basically to develop, it's the first step in the development of a program for ultimately the 2016-17 year for struggling students or students in an alternative kind of learning environment. And in addition of a 1.0 instructional assistant, this would be, there are 2 ASC instructional assistants right now. This would make 3. This is to provide immediate and more personalized support to kids one-on-one outside of the classroom. A 0.8 business teacher, this has been, the addition of this teacher, this has been student requests that we couldn't meet because of staffing. A 0.4 social studies teacher to maintain class sizes, offer new course opportunities. I mean, ideally, this would be an addition of an existing person who is currently part-time, ideally. Addition of .2 theater arts, that would expand, as you may recall, last year we added the theater arts position, so this would expand that position at the high school. Currently .6, moving to .8. For the district, we're looking for a new tech support technician who would work across the district to, and Suchi will talk about this later on in his presentation. What this person does is they basically provide support for all staff across the district. There are 5 of them right now. This would make 6, and you'll see that again in the FTE summaries. At Hale, because of student enrollment, we would be asking for a new grade 6 position. At Florence Sawyer, this position, a special educator for grades 6 to 8, will be talked about in greater detail under the special education presentation. And a 1.0 instructional assistant for the kindergarten at Florence Sawyer. At Center, a 1.0 or a full-time special educator at grade levels 3 to 5. Again, based on student need, and a math specialist. Again, the special educator will be discussed in greater detail in a few minutes. And for the special education department, we're asking to add a teen chair with something, the way it's designed right now, the teen chairs support schools across a certain level. Grades 3 to 5, high school, depending on the level to which they're assigned, they do the IEP meetings. There's just such a demand for the workload right now that we're asking for an additional teen chair support person. And because of student needs, we're asking for a related service provider. Could be occupational therapy, physical therapy, or speech therapy. And here's the Excel design kind of list that it's really hard to see, I apologize. But the changes in FTEs, which is a full-time equivalent, not necessarily bodies, in the different departments, everything from the system-wide health, facilities, teaching and learning are staying the same. There are no new requests in this budget. Under special education, the FTEs would go from 6 to 7 with the addition of the teen chair. The Unit A, or teacher position, we're asking for an addition of 3. The related service provider, the OT, speech, PT, special educator at Center, and special educator at Florence Sawyer. That's 3 FTEs, those are full-time. Technology, it would go from, I'm sorry, I said 5 to 6, it would go from 6 to 7 for tech support across the district. Athletics, the FTEs would stay the same from 2 to 2. At the high school, the addition of the .8, it would go from the FTEs, and FY15 is 2. We're asking for 2.8. English, the theater arts position is in the, right now it's budgeted in the English department, so that would, the FTE changes 11.6 to 11.8. Guidance, the alternative program educator would be under the guidance department. That would move the FTEs from 6.0 to 6.6. Library, media, math, music would stay the same. Social studies, the addition of the .4 educator would move the 10.4 current FTEs to 10.8. Science, tech ed, foreign language stay the same. The ASC tutors, the one-on-one instructional assistant that supports the students outside the classroom, that would go from 2 FTEs to 3. That's not mine. That's fine. Oh. So at Luther Burbank, all of the FTEs for FY15 are mirrored in FY16. In Center School, under the Center School teacher salaries, it's 39.6 FTEs right now in FY15. That would go to 39.6 in FY16 because of a reduction in the teaching staff, movement in enrollment, but we're asking for an addition of a math specialist. All of the FTEs will remain the same. Florence Sawyer, there would be a change in the Florence Sawyer teachers but this change is actually a reduction. The reduction of 50.43 FTEs in FY15, it's hard to say, would go to 48.43 FTEs in FY16. And that's based upon enrollment. The K assistant is represented in the increase in FTEs from FY15, 4.0 to 5.0 in FY16. And Mary Rowlandson's school, there is no change in FTEs requested.
I just want to add, the slides in between are just added information for the school committee to understand how those changes being proposed would impact class size or class ratios. So if you can bounce back, Alita, to slide 12. This is a slide that shows for the core courses, the class size ratios for English, foreign language, math, science, and social studies at high school. And then enrollment slides 14 and 15 show the breakdown for pre-K through 2, 3 through 5, and then 6 through 8 based on the sections that are being proposed.
Is this current? Is this current year?
So the first column is current year. The second column is the proposed for FY16.
You saying that's 12?
I'm sorry?
That's slide 12?
So slide 12 was the high school ratios. And then slide 14, 15 are pre-K through 5. And then there should be a slide 16, and that's showing just FY16 for 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, so back at the high school, you've got anticipated enrollment increase of 15 to 25 students. Where's that coming from?
That's coming from the change of the grade 12 going out and grade 9 coming in.
So we know that we have 15 to 25 students coming in.
It's an estimate.
Is this all the additions?
Those are the requested additions for FY16.
So when we saw the NEAS information, one of the things that I remember that kind of stuck out to me is the big increase in kids and not a big increase in administration, and how it's been taxing in many levels on them, meaning principal, vice principal, kind of the support staff. So there's not going to be a recommendation to...
There's not a recommendation to increase administration at the high school at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was discussed. We went back and forth on it. In looking at administration overall, the position that I'm recommending is the team chair. It's a quasi-administrative role in terms of decision-making because of the larger kinds of issues it can address around the high-risk student population that we're trying to work with.
So when we had that discussion, that was part of it, but I think another part was to head up and lead things like professional development, mentor, pull the teachers together, all that kind of stuff is kind of falling down only because the current administration, the huge increase in students has put them into more disciplinary roles, which that will help, but also facility maintenance roles they're helping a lot with, getting called because of building issues, space issues, things like that. So are we sure that we don't need, so we're sure this is...
Well, I would say there is a need for all the reasons you just articulated, but weighing all the things, including cost, the decision that I'm recommending is to go with the team chair.
Okay.
It won't go away.
Both.
I mean,
I know, I just feel
yeah.
like that was such a strong voice from the teacher community at the high school. I would have expected to see that as well. If not both, at least we could at least decided that we couldn't handle both, but. Okay.
And I just have a question. Since teaching is based on FTE counts. What is the current FTE count? For some reason, that's we don't talk about people, we talk about FTEs. So what is the total
Overall for the entire district?
Yeah.
Add multiply. I don't know.
It's on the, it's on the budget page for the salary composite.
So the net of teachers, we're asking for 8 new positions. We're reducing the district by 3 FTEs, so the net is 5 overall.
Well, I'm just wondering, because when you go back and you look at the state to see where we're at, back in 2012, we had 244, and then we actually went down in 2013 to 218, 219. So I'm just wondering where we're going with the FTEs. And when we take away, we put them in. But I'm just trying to.
Well, again, it's based on enrollment and student need.
Well, I'd like to know what it is now and where we're going. I just want to see what kind of direction we're going in.
So do you want a total for,
Get to the
you want a
total.
total FTE for 2016 versus 2015?
Right.
For the district?
Because you can't get that amount. That's the number goes to.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
No, go ahead.
So on the slide where it says the percent of classes with 22 or more students, math and social studies numbers are quite high. Math is at 51% at the high school and social studies is at 46%. So we're saying that half of the classes have more than 22 students in math. That's a big number. So do we think our estimate and our ask is going to help that enough? Was there an ask for additional math resources?
The breakdown wasn't there.
The math
Ask for a
specialist at center
breakdown.
school was doing
Right.
math.
So
That's concerning.
that's really concerning to me personally. So those two things, to me, I would have expected at least those two things to be present to that.
So Perry, can you just talk a little bit about how you prioritize the breakdown?
I'm not, no, but,
Yeah.
no, I don't need you to do that
Okay.
because I think everything you prioritize is probably the top priority. I'm just saying, I think there's 2 more things that are top priority.
We'll
That's all
add
I'm
to the
saying.
budget greatly, easily.
I'm not saying it won't add to the budget.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, based on everything I've heard in the last year, I'm not gonna bit question Perry's judgment on what the priorities are. I'm saying I feel like there's 2 more glaring priorities in my face, personally.
I think I'd rather ask, well,
You can ask him.
but what I'm asking is, I mean,
I know
our class size is a 24, right? So it's saying that they're
Class sizes
over,
are, I'm sorry, say again?
our class size is a 24. I mean, some are a little higher sometimes based on weather, but we
The
try to
average
keep.
class size, and that was the slide, the average class sizes are somewhere between like 20 and 21 point something is the average class size within the core. And then there's the percentage of classes that have 22 or more students.
But, I mean, it's kind of misleading to say that 52% of the classes have more than 21 kids in them, because it could just be 23.
I mean, I could have,
I mean, I understand what
Correct.
you're trying to do, but I'm like, I think I'd rather see, you know, how many are over what we would consider a size of class instead of just 21, saying the average is 21. I mean, because they could all be 24, which
I
is
don't
what.
think they are, but,
I
because we don't have means in extrapolation in this, yes, you're right.
so it's a little misleading.
You know off the top of your head this year what,
if you give me about 5 or 10 minutes, I can tell you what they are.
Okay, come back.
So when you do that, Perry, can you also, where, because last meeting it was mentioned that you asked for 3 FTE, but originally the ask was 5, or 2 to 5 or 5, I can't remember, but Michael, we had that conversation, so there were additional heads that Perry was interested in his initial request.
Oh yeah, I would say that across the board.
And I'm sure that's the case, but
Yeah.
I would like to know from the high school's perspective where those additional heads were, where were you looking at opportunity?
So a variety of different things. I would say looking at some of the other departments and trying to add sections across some of the other departments. Math being an obvious choice, given that they have the highest class average and percentage of classes with 22 or more students. There's definitely conversation around the need for another administrator. When I give the choice, I tend to try to prioritize teachers in the classrooms as opposed to administrators, because they're the ones who are looking directly at the kids. I have a bunch of different scenarios in my head. I would say largely looking at trying to add section counts across the other academic departments.
In an effort to reduce class size
Uh,
or add additional courses?
Both. Maintaining class size, I mean, I would say that if the enrollment projections are roughly accurate, if we go up 15 to 20 kids next year, that's roughly a section per department, so having a 0.2 is roughly kind of keeping up with that. But then also, there are some classes that we'd like to be able to offer, and that depends on, it's always a trade-off. You can have higher class sizes to support an additional class go in. So, those will be decisions that we'll have to make as we look through the master schedule.
But I think that comment that you just made about looking at additional courses that we want to add is an important one, and I think we should know what those additional courses are that you're interested in adding, because I'm not going to feel comfortable making a decision knowing that you wanted to add one of those other innovative courses that combines art and science, and because we said this is it, you can't do that. So I'd really like to know at some point what those are.
I'm actually having a problem with this as you're talking about it, because we actually, in Stowe, our classes run right at the line, 25, 26, whatever. We decided at one point that 28 was the number we were going to add another class. And those, the lower levels, really we need the smaller classes. In the high school, I wouldn't think you'd need the smaller classes into 20. That we within the 24, I mean, is that...
Well, it depends on the type of class, too. It depends on the, I don't want to answer for you. The course and also the level, I would assume. You want to make sure that but you can answer that question since you're there.
We tend to try to prioritize having smaller class sizes in CP classes, just as a general rule, as a general rule, students in CP classes benefit from a little bit more support, so we try to do that as much as possible. Sometimes the numbers play out, it's hard to do that. If you've got 42 students signed up, you really can't split that into 3 sections. Generally, you split that into 2 sections. So that is one factor that we try to take into account, is trying to lean towards lower class sizes with CP.
And what percentage of the population is in CP?
I'd have to look that up. It's probably, it would depend on the individual department, because we have a lot of variability. Most kids are taking classes across different levels. I would say it's probably somewhere in the 20% range as an average. I mean, that's not a part of the class. I can go in and find that number. That might take a little bit longer time. I would say the majority of students are in accelerated classes in any given department, and you have probably somewhere between 15 to 20% of students enrolled at CP level, depending on the department, 15 to 20% of students enrolled in honors or PE, depending on the area.
And I have one more question. The .2 theater arts, what's that going to address?
That's adding some additional classes and allowing more students to take theater arts.
Does that have anything to do with the drama club?
That does not directly impact the drama club. No, that's a stipended after-school position.
Would it stay that way, or would it roll into the curriculum? Or the courses?
No, I anticipate the drama club staying as a separate after-school thing, but I would certainly anticipate that students who are taking theater arts classes would also be students who are likely to enroll in after-school drama.
Okay.
I am proposing a slight increase in the drama advisor stipend after school to recognize that. I'm hoping we're going to see increased participation.
Yeah, because it's dropped off. And music is staying the same, even with the number of kids that are in the music program?
I'm not asking for an increase in music.
But are the people who are teaching the music program seeing an increase in the number of students who are taking?
So we actually have been able to accommodate a little bit more increase. Tom O'Toole, the previous music teacher, was the department head, so he taught 4 classes as opposed to 5. Judy French is now the fine and performance arts department head in art. And so Joe McCarthy, the new band teacher, is able to teach 5 classes, so that's allowed a little bit of increase. He's actually teaching a new class this semester called percussion, which will be offered next week. So that's allowed just for some natural increase there.
Thank you.
I have a question. For the related services for the special ed department, you said OTP, peer speech. How are you going to decide which was needed? Because there are three very different.
Well, Michael is going to talk about that under the special education presentation in more detail.
It'll be based on
But-
IEP.
Yeah, I mean, right now, it's difficult for the existing staff to manage their caseload
Right, so how are you going to decide which one is the most needed?
based on the student need.
Whatever the shifts finally end up to be.
And then my other question is, actually Stowe has 22 point something or less kids in every class. Bolton has the most, which is a little concerning, in 7th grade, 25.25 kids. So I didn't know if we thought about addressing that at all. That's definitely the highest class.
28 was the number.
28 was the number?
If you get to 28, you got a teacher. That was the goal last year.
Generally, the class at around 100, over 108 bumps it into requesting another class.
Another question. On slide 14, the numbers of students in the various schools per grade. There's an asterisk in the Mary Rowlandson, but there's no explanation.
Yes, sorry about that, I got cut up. We generally are expecting about 65 kids at Mary Rowlandson. Just to keep consistency, we checked in to see what the report back was. We only have now 45 on the list. There are actually 3 FTEs planned for next year, and 3 are in the budget. But this is a place we're watching, so we only have 40 students right now signed up for kindergarten at MRE. But we
But
are
you think there's
expecting, we
more.
sent out 65.
It was 65 on the census, and we only heard back 40. And we're about to go knock on doors.
Right.
Okay.
So every other kindergarten number for FY16 is exactly what they have back so far. So that's what we're going with. So I wanted to compare apples to apples.
Okay. So that 2 is really a 3.
The 2 is really a 3, but that might be a place we're going to wiggle room because we don't need it,
Okay.
depending on what actually turns out.
So are the schools going to be reporting out or not?
Not specifically tonight, it'd be like these types of questions.
Well, I would love to dig into Snorri School, but maybe we need to.
That's the time too?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm going to wait. Is there an opportunity to invite Joel back?
Absolutely.
Joel, wherever you are. I'd like you to come back so we can talk.
I'd be thrilled to come back anytime.
I'd like to just listen to
Okay.
It would be interesting.
Okay.
And a question on Hale. You want to add a teacher at Hale for the 113? Well, what are you doing for them this year? At fifth grade? So it's 5 sections, so what's going to happen to that teacher?
I didn't hear the question was.
In Central School, you've got 5 teachers handling the 113 that are bumping up to the 6th grade next year. So they want to hire an additional teacher at Hale, so what's happening with the teacher at Central?
Yeah, so overall this year we have 4 sections. So excuse me, there are 4 grade levels where there's 5 sections, and it reduces to 4. Overall, Center has a reduction of 1.0 FTE.
So a teacher wouldn't have an opportunity to bump up, or is that?
They could. The issues are licensure, and in some cases desirability in terms of their own personal preference. Do they want to work in elementary school versus a middle school? So we always post the position. They're always welcome to do it, especially if there's a circumstance where,
Is this a position where somebody knows that that's going to happen?
somebody knows that.
I mean, when they were hired, did they know that this was temporary?
The
I
person
think-
impacted in this particular
Yeah.
position was hired for a long-term sub for a year to fill a maternity leave. So in some ways, the teacher knows that at the end of the year, contract has ended. That said, this teacher's done a tremendous job, so we're going to do everything we can to keep them on staff. As Michael alluded, if there's a position for which they're certified within the district that's available, then they would have the opportunity to apply and continue moving accordingly.
Okay, so I do have a question. So I'd like to ask someone from the Bolton Advisory or one of our selectmen, do you know what the projections are for a move-in for Bolton for next year? Do you guys have any idea what that is?
No, current data just came
Anything
up,
you can give me as a.
like households, things,
Yeah.
numbers like that. Town Hall has it, and we had those numbers the other night. I didn't bring them.
That's okay. I don't mean to put you
they're
on the
No,
spot.
they're easy to come by. We were
The
looking at
reason
them.
I ask is, going back to something Julie said, is when you look at Sawyer School in the 7th grade, it's currently at 25.25 students, right?
Right.
Per class. So if we have any families move in, we're over the 28. What happens then?
We look at a new teacher.
So we would
We've
just,
done that in August.
we would add another teacher, and then what happens if it happens mid-year? What if we have 6 kids come into that classroom?
Mid-year is more difficult.
Right.
For lots of reasons, mostly programmatic. So it's unlikely we do it mid-year, but certainly, by August, if we know by August 15th or so, we would definitely do that. We've done that.
And the policy is at 28 right now? Is that right?
108 total class.
28
Per class.
per class, yes. That's when we added a new teacher in Stowe. Over
Yeah.
3 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
And Bolton a couple of years.
Yeah, we did it.
Wow.
The numbers can fluctuate greatly though. At the beginning of the summer last year, we increased from June to August with 12 students moving in. And the same rate we've had years where we've seen it, the numbers being close to the edge and move-outs as well take place that we weren't aware of and not know.
But your school's going to be different than ours because you're brand new, and everybody's like excited about the brand new school. We
I'd like to
have.
think it's for me, but
It's not, but that's good.
and the school.
A healthy, that's good. But I'm just, and Joel, I don't want to put you on the spot. That's
No,
why I
it's all
want
right.
you to come back at some point because that's kind of concerning to me, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah,
Even though you're not from
I mean, to Kevin's point that, it's, if we were in that situation with the move-ins, it's not impossible. And what we would do is look at the plus model with the 4 sections of content specific, supported by that 5th section of teachers, having just done it a couple of years ago.
Right. With that big bubble that's moving out next year, right?
Yep,
Okay.
yep,
All
moving
right,
on to the
thank
high
you.
school.
Well, oddly, with the big fancy new school, your kindergarten enrollment's going down by quite a bit.
Our preschool enrollment is rising. And we just had the completion of the development in Stowe as well, which is bringing in, brought in families. Not kindergarten per se, but our population has grown for the last 5 years from my last look at it. Pretty, I wouldn't say drastically, but healthy, I suppose.
Hey, could you, since you brought it up, could you explain I was just reading the paper, and it says that you announced that you're going to have full-day pre-K at Center in Stowe.
No, I believe the highlight was that we started full-day preschool this year, so it's already there. That was budgeted last year. So this is our first year of full-day preschool, which has also increased numbers. We started the year before with only a half-day program, so we rolled it out slowly. So now we have 1.5 sections of preschool, with lots of people asking for more, actually. With a huge waiting list.
How does that work with preschool? The offset for the fees that the families pay?
Right, so on our offset tab for revenues, you'd see it in there listed as an area we use to address our overall revenues.
Are we gonna go over this document
Yes.
later? Okay, I'll wait then. Thank you.
It's under, it's under grant offsets. Line 19. Other questions about enrollment?
I have a quick question at top mind. I'm wondering how at 11feb15 we handle this. Our 7th grade is at 24, which is, we have some transitional students that we are mandated to educate that sometimes come in and out. And how do we handle that if it gets to the excess numbers throughout the classroom?
28.
Yeah, I mean, because I think sometimes we have unpredictable, we can always predict the enrollment of some students that may come and go. And it appears to me recently that we've had a lot more students.
Yeah, we haven't been at that number.
We haven't.
been at 28.
We haven't been close, and then it kind of comes and goes.
No.
But that would be the same
There's,
situation.
you know, there's a small, we do have kids coming from the program,
Mhm.
but that's, you know, a handful, that's not a handful every year. And that's plus the grade.
And do you typically get notification in August, or you just,
No.
that's what I'm thinking, it's totally
Yeah.
unpredictable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Monica. All right. Our next area, facilities.
Thank you. So facilities, we're looking at 5.85% or 76,650 increase. You know, we want to maintain our focus on system repair and upgrades while keeping the environment healthy and safe and manageable. Part of our scheduled maintenance proposals this year is going to be the modular move up, the old Pompo modular that's actually in really nice shape. We're looking at taking that modular from Stowe and moving it to the high school to increase some of our square footage. I've got some talking there about the capital plan for the high school, and elementary school work is handled usually by the town as a capital expenditure. So in order to go forward, I think it's important that we see what we've done last year. So last year, capital projects, we've completed a lot of work at both the Florence Sawyer School and Emerson. We've replaced a lot of carpets between the two buildings that were aging, as well as part of a security measure. We replaced classroom as well as critical area door locks within the building. So we got rid of all the old keys that were floating around, and all those things have new hardware as well as new locks. And that's both for Florence Sawyer School and Emerson School. For Stowe, we completed the Hartley Road project where we ground and repaved Hartley Road as well as the front parking lot, and that project was done in concert with the Stowe DPW, which was actually a really nice project. And we did phase 2 of the building ceiling project, which is to try to, increase energy efficiency as well as decrease, water infiltration into the building. And we have phase 3 on the proposal for this year. New roof at the high school over the upper gym lobby. That was a failing roof, that we replaced that roof over the summer, and that was a project that went out to bid. We were also able to work with National Grid and Hudson Light and Power and electricity providers, and we were able to replace all the lights in the district with high efficiency lighting. And we did that over the summer, and we actually worked with some students from Minuteman, one of our partner vocational schools, and it really was a great project. And we were able to get through all the buildings and replace and clean all the lamps, so that should help us energy-wise. So some of the scheduled maintenance projects is a continued effort onto security. I think that's an important area for us to stay vigilant on. And we rekeyed a majority of the buildings exterior. That way we were able to now take away the actual physical metal key, and we all work now with a exterior badge, so no one has a key to the exterior of the building. It's all card swipe driven, which gives us some additional level of security. We've added exterior cameras around the district. Like I said, the keyless entry system, we've really increased that across the district. We've done some vehicle upgrades and retirement to some older parts of the fleet, and we've added the activity bus, which actually I just heard is going to be delivered on Monday or Tuesday, so that's exciting. And then we've site improvements, the things you don't see as behind the scenes, is the plumbing, HVAC, and lighting, landscape. We've focused on kind of splitting out and developing a maintenance and grounds crew to really try to start working on our fields as well as the maintenance in the building when it comes to winter. And they've been invaluable with this snow that we've had, coordinating that effort. So next slide is 2016. It's really the larger drivers of the facilities budget. So we have some vehicle expenses that's increased, and that really comes off from the fuel increases. I mean, we've had fuel has, until recently, increased some, and the $9,500 is an increase in vehicle repair budget. We do have an aging fleet, and we found this year that they've required more repair work on them. We have the activity van lease payment, and then we have a request in for a truck to replace one of the older vehicles. Heating fuel, we were able to negotiate, watching the market, we were able to negotiate a lower dollar per gallon rate, and compared from FY15 to 16, we have a 20% reduction in the oil costs for the district. Offsets against the increased electricity that, you know, is nationwide and everyone's struggling with now. We're looking at about a 15% increase in electricity, and reason why we went with 15, you know, some of the trends show a little bit more, but we think with the energy efficiency initiative and making sure people are shutting off lights, and we're replacing equipment, and we're keeping things in good working order, and as well as the light program, we'll be able to bring a few things down there. We have an increase on custodial supplies, and that's really from some new machinery we're looking at getting. The buildings have been busy, and with the busy buildings comes more wear and tear on the equipment. So, high school schedule maintenance. This is an area, this is a larger number, and we have about an 8% increase over what we had last year, which was 362 to 394. But I think it's important to see in high school schedule maintenance, it really is two separate categories. One of them is what I would consider like our high school capital projects, you know, the work we're doing. This year we're going forward with $195,000 for what I call the high school capital work. There's some work in the library, there's some, what they'd like to do is knock down and open up some areas to give a little more open learning space there. Adding an additional conference room, we're trying to carve out a niche to get some additional conference room space. The modular installation to get that modular building over there and get all the utilities run and connections, and as well as some money for some band room upgrades that were requested by the new band teacher. So we want to try to support him and help him out where he needs. Second part of this is the $199,000, and that's for what I would consider general maintenance on the building. You know, interior work, the fields, cameras, roofing repairs, HVAC repairs, adding new cafeteria seating as things get broken. And you know, different utilities and, you know, parking lots, window repairs. And to gauge that in FY14, that particular line item was about $205,000. This year we're looking at about $199,000. It's really the driver in these over the past 2 years have been the capital project work. Last year it was the roof at about $175,000. This year it's the group capital type projects. And then we have our district school schedule maintenance. These are the requests and the needs from the local district schools that don't fall into that capital project bucket that we go to the towns for. Some of it goes into security, like adding A-phones, which is a door unlock system, drainage at center, security, some screen work done over in Bolton, doing some work on Derby Field here in Bolton, which has been, you know, pretty packed down from the use. Additional wood chips, because we have the secondary playground here that we need to maintain until we can move to remove it. Cafeteria tables, and again, sound panels over in Lancaster to upgrade the system so it meets with the new projector system we put in. And then some smaller work here at the central office, just, you know, some carpeting, painting, and some door hardware. And that's, so if there's any questions, yes?
How did the modular relocation go from 85,000 to 145,000?
140,000 was a place marker we were talking about originally. The 85,000 is actually doing a lot of the work in-house. You know, doing a lot of the GC and design work in-house.
So
we're hoping to actually drive that closer to the 85,000.
So that's a disconnect for me.
It's a huge one. It's almost double.
Yeah, so if we're going under the assumption that it's 85 and you're asking for 145.
Well, the vote was 100, first of all. So we talked about 85, but the vote was 100.
What is the cost? Do we know what the cost is?
Yeah,
Because
if
we
we
can
hired somebody to do all the work, the engineering, and all that type of thing, it would be up towards the $145,000.
And when did we find that out? Do you know?
We've known that, but we decided in order to make it.
Whoa, we didn't know that.
You
What's
told us
that?
85.
Yeah, we were all told 85.
We were not told 145 when we
Excuse me.
asked.
Right, excuse me. I had talked to Bill the day or two before the meeting, we discussed it, okay? Bill said he could get it done for $85,000. He can get it done, he's gonna do it for $85,000 to $100,000. Again, the vote was $100,000. We talked to $85,000, but the vote was for $100,000.
That's not what we're talking about. It's the 145. So tell me about the 145.
145 is if we didn't do some of the work he just described in-house. If we contracted out all the engineering and all the work he just described.
Well, we only approved 100, so it can't
Right.
go to 145.
So then what?
So in terms of the budget, where the money will come from in this facilities budget, there's not a line that says 145,000. He's just drawing out that. So there.
I'd rather there was. At least
I understand that, but because of the way it works and what we have to charge to the lines, you know, it would come from different accounts. So there are other items that will be purchased relative to scheduled maintenance that he will draw upon those accounts.
You know, that might be true, but it feels like a bait and switch.
I hear that, but we're sticking to the 85,000 as much as we can.
So how are we going to track this?
We'll give you a sheet just like we did for the.
Yeah, I could do a breakdown as we go through the process. A lot of the hope is that a lot of the work we can do in-house, you know, I'll provide the engineering services and design and do the general contracting services between the move from there and the eventual installation at the high school.
So I mean, in reality, it's, I know I'm gonna get flack for this, only 60,000, but it's kind of indicative of how we probably would like to see some of these threads that we can follow through the budget. Because I know I'm gonna call our Bolton advisory folks and ask them to sit down with me because I need to understand it all, but if we could, especially if we're presenting these types of numbers and projections, if we could, when we get to the point where the budget is voted on and we're tracking it, if we could maintain that visibility for those specific activities, I think it would help all of us to stay on top of what's going on and not have the questions. That would be great. Do you have another question? Because I have a few.
No, go ahead.
So that was my first one, is the cost. Thank you for that. So, you know what, Bill, I want to hear what your expert opinion is. Every time you come in and talk, you always have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, and I appreciate that. But one of the questions I have for you is, I thought you said that you had hired a lot of trade experts. So plumbers and electricians.
Yes.
Is that the case?
Well, we've had these tradespeople in our arsenal for a while. We've had an electrician, we hired a plumber when we lost an HVAC. We lost an HVAC person. Instead of going out for a straight HVAC tech, we hired a plumber to be in. And then both the electrician and plumber we worked with, and they went out and got certified as HVAC techs. So we were able to cross-train. That way we have people that can work through controls. They do go to the controls classes.
Right.
You know, I try to be very proactive with making sure that we have the continual education and upgrades of the different systems we have. So we do technically, although they're a band of two, they are electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and controls.
So they cross the trades.
They cross the trades, and I think that's important.
Okay. So that was one question. And the other is, well, you know you have a leak in the high school right now?
We have a few leaks here.
Tell me,
yes.
is that's obviously not the roof that was fixed, is
No.
that? Do you
The leak,
know?
and are we talking the one in the main entry, the guidance area?
I don't know if it's guidance or if it's science, or I got 3
There are-
phone calls on
Isn't
it.
there one in the
Yeah.
gym?
There's a few leaks here and there. They're difficult to track. We have put in, you know, I've had the roofing contractors come out, we've tracked different areas. Part of the leaks that we struggle with, when we did the addition, there's a roof on
The
top
ones
of a
that
roof.
travel, yeah.
Right, and it's the leaks that travel. And short of ripping everything out and redoing it, what we're trying to do is systematically work through, let's try this area. And we'll go in from the kind of the smaller dollar, hopefully the bigger bang areas, replace some coping, look for pinholes or leaks in the roof. But unfortunately, with double roofs and some of the construction, the leaks get in and then they travel.
Okay.
And you get that, although you fix it, you need to wait till the next either heavy rain or melt. And right now, we're gonna have a substantial melt that we're gonna see a few weeks. But it leaks in these types of buildings with flat rubber roofs with lots of equipment on it are commonplace.
right, no,
We try to
understood.
stay ahead of them.
And then my last question may not be for you, it might be for Michael and George, and is there any thought to the tennis court discussion that had come up a few months ago?
There's nothing in this budget for anything related to parking.
So, does that mean that the tennis courts will stay as they are for next year?
Yes.
So there's no plan to rip those out or do anything else with them other than what there is?
I don't know, there's some talk, but there's some plans to repurpose them?
We're talking about repurposing the tennis courts and working through some of our available funds within the district.
Repurposing them,
To
Well, the
Caucus.
plan hasn't been developed.
But we're in the very initial stages of even discussions on that. We've started reaching out to the community and talking, and, you know,
Right.
we've got some both negative and positive feedback. So I think we're taking that in now and trying to come up with, you know, what's gonna be the right decision there.
so how does that decision get made?
Obviously, we have some internal conversations to have yet.
Right, got that. At the point that you've had the internal conversations, are we informed of that? Do we have the opportunity to weigh in on that, or is that just a decision that's made internally and it's done?
And then when does the funding come for?
Yeah, we'll come with a proposal so you can see it.
Okay, so it won't be done
So there's
unless
not
we.
any money in the budget now, currently, for that project.
Correct. Correct.
Well, it's not, yeah, to your point, there's not new money in there, but there may be money in there that could be utilized, is where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
I wasn't meaning to suggest repurposing like a no parking lot. I'm just talking about the possibility that we talked about. It was only a minor thing, changing from tennis to basketball. That's all I was talking about. Because of the fact we have new tennis courts and we need some outside capacity. I wasn't talking about, so I don't mean to suggest, that's why we have a little confusion going here.
Okay.
That type of change I'm talking about.
Okay,
Not,
But that was what Bill was talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's
the Bill's original
what it
thing was
is.
parking. The question is about the parking.
Right.
So-
So we're not gonna see those tennis courts go away, no parking go there, and if the tennis courts go away, it'll be a basketball court, but there won't be parking. Amen. Okay,
Well, no, they didn't say that.
I think they just did,
No.
did
We're
you not say that?
No.
It- The
I don't know what the
repurposing is
parking-
up for grabs is what I'm hearing.
But what I also heard was no parking lot.
There are no plans in this budget.
Oh, that sounds like,
That
that
doesn't
sounds
mean
like
it's
the
not gonna happen next
president. We currently,
I can't tell you that as we look and unfold a plan in general for the building, we won't consider parking as part of that consideration. And it's a flat surface, so I'm sure that parking is going to be, that space is going to be considered. Whether, I don't know how many years out that is, but it's not in the FY16 plan.
So make it a sports center, weightlifting and whatever, that's totally off the table. Because that's what you talked about initially, 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago, yeah.
So that's totally gone. So this could be repurposed into anything, and it still could be parking.
Anything flat that can use the surface that, and the underpinning that's essentially
But
there.
it won't become parking in the next year.
Correct.
No,
That's what we just heard.
But it's
right?
not off,
Right.
but it's
That's
not
what I
off the
wanted to
table.
know.
It's not off the
It
table.
is not off the
But
table.
what I don't understand is, it is a flat surface,
Right,
and we need space,
right.
and we'll never consider it as classroom?
Well, I've never used the word never, but I just did twice. I usually won't use the word never. You know, that's certainly something, it would be difficult to have it for space, just because of the distance. And unless you were gonna build a freestanding building with facilities, which would be difficult to do there, but not impossible.
But
So I won't,
But in space study, what we're talking about is the core classes are no longer, the electives are no longer considered electives, they are somewhat core classes. So there are some instances where you might be able to do that. I mean, because it's still a viable
it's
space.
an outside of the box thinking, yes.
We like outside the box. We're getting squished.
But it's not on the horizon, the planning horizon for FY16.
So we're not closed-minded about the parking. It could be anything.
Outside of FY16, yes. Right?
With more discussion.
Okay, district-wide cameras. We don't have any right now, right?
We do, yes, we do have district-wide cameras that every school has.
So the interior to every school.
Not interior. The only school that has interior cameras right now is the high school and Center when it was designed as one interior camera.
Okay. So is this talking about adding them to the other schools?
No.
Interior?
That discussion hasn't, well,
We just passed a policy for that.
No, we read a policy. We
Well, I
didn't
mean,
pass anything.
it's on the table, so it's come out of policy committee.
And again, it's a recommendation, not a law.
Right.
Okay. So it's not a done deal. So is this saying that we've got security cameras in the budget?
I have money for security cameras in the budget. How we determine where to use them
Okay.
is
And how are we going to operate them?
in.
Are they over the network?
They are within our network,
So
yes.
do we even know if the network can handle it?
Yes, I work with G on the network for there. We don't have any problems there because it's within our firewall. And we do have the bandwidth for that. We haven't had
So
any
that
problems.
would-
And every school has a local server, so all the information from that goes to the local server, so it's school-based. And then, you know, there's a master program that can just pull visual images if needed.
Okay, so when we talk about the network, that'll come up.
Yes, we can talk.
Okay.
So quick question, if you're saying it's inside the firewall, that means it's not, like, the BYOD is outside the firewall, or, I mean, because I know that there's always that question of bandwidth and
Yes,
capacity.
it's inside, like, we can talk details when we talk about technology part.
And I'd say 80% of the existing, maybe even more, maybe closer to 90% of the existing camera system doesn't run on the network. It is an analog type system, so the wires run directly from the camera to the server. Anything newer that we put in over the past year and a half or so, I've been transitioning to an IP-based type camera because it's newer technology and it's more efficient, works better. So we have a really low draw, I mean, bandwidth with security.
Any questions?
And the earphones, where are you using those?
The A-phone is, one of the requests was at Center School. Right now, here in Bolton, in MRE, and now we're looking to move to Center. We have the A-phone, which is the button when you walk up, you press it, and Mary talks to you through the speaker.
Yeah.
What A-phone has come out with is the ability to also have it on a laptop. So if Mary wasn't at her desk, or if extended day was somewhere remote in the building, when someone hits the buzzer, it comes up on their computer screen.
And
So it's.
Where are those right now, Bill?
We have one here at Emerson, and we also have it in MRE. So they run off the computer rather than just the little A-phone box.
So is that for, oh, that's only for Stowe?
That's only for Center School, and that's more to help out with, you know, Kevin's group as they're transitioning and moving around the school, as well as the extended day program after.
And how come for site improvements, you've got plumbing, HVAC? I mean, is that just general, that's not really site?
Well, generally, I mean, by site, I mean the building and grounds, and that's just our continual efforts of, you know, repairing the infrastructure, improving the infrastructure. With the plumber on site, with the electrician on site, they're very proactive on, you know, looking at areas that you might have a broken faucet or low water pressure or something that may, you know, lights that are flickering, and they get in, they try to stay very proactive with that and do repairs.
And where are the fences going up in Stowe?
Center, Hale School, that's around the baseball field.
Other questions? Thank you, Bill. All right. Our next topic is technology. And Sue Chi is our technology director for hardware.
Okay, so I'm here instead of talking about numbers. Most likely, I talk the instructor and how we provide support, those kind of things, and along with like Cindy. I think George or Michael can talk about the number later. So like I attend a school committee roundtable a couple days or weeks ago. Like I hear there. My understanding there are some concern or questions about technology. So I'm here most likely just try to clear things out. So first, I'd like to talk about the infrastructure. So the district do have a pretty robust infrastructure, including local air network and also wide area network, which means is inside of each schools, we have a pretty good connection from each endpoint, meaning like each station to the core switch in that building, and from each building, we have a very strong, very good connection to the data center in high school. So that being said, meaning from every single point in each building, all the way to the high school, we have very smooth, very big pipe. So there's no delay for that part. And second is the wireless access. Right now, the district, for all the core academic area, actually not core, all the academic areas, like teachers, the classrooms, the labs, all those kind of places, is 100% coverage. Then for other areas, like in the hallways, the cafeteria, gyms, all that is definitely over 95% coverage. So the only place might have a not that good coverage probably is bathroom, is a corner of the building, those kind of places. But generally speaking, like anywhere you go in the building, you can have Wi-Fi coverage.
And so this is just where there's coverage. This is not usage. This is not reported usage. This is, that there's coverage everywhere.
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Theoretically.
No, sir, we have data. I can show you a map.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. Keep going. I'd love
Okay.
to hear it.
Yeah, then we have one single connection for to internet, which is at high school data center. The current connection bandwidth is 200 meg. It's symmetrical, both download and upload. We like to increase that to 500 by summer this 2015. So it just also the number we're asking is based on the data, the usage we got from some software.
But that's just hardware, right?
What do you mean hardware?
Well, because you've got a fiber connection, you're not putting more fiber in, are you?
No,
So
the
you're talking
fiber.
hardware.
The fiber is kind of it's just a physical connection, but how much bandwidth? That fiber can handle as much as you want. You can think that way.
Okay, so how are you going to increase from 200 to 500?
Oh, we're just asking for more. Like we have to we put out a bid.
More fibers or more hardware?
More bandwidth. It's not hardware. It's kind of service. It's just like you have a
so
TV.
we don't own the fiber?
We don't. This is a lease from Comcast. It's a
paid
5-year
for it
lease.
We don't own
We never own fiber.
it? So we don't have an INET?
Yes.
We don't have good.
He's talking about the internet connection.
Yes.
The thing
Not between schools, this is actually to the central office?
High school.
All right, can I answer your question? There's a two-piece. We have 7 buildings. High school is a data center.
Mm-hmm.
We have 6 schools plus 7 central office. Each school has a dedicated fiber connected to high school data center.
Yep.
This fiber is a lease from Comcast. The high school alone, we have a single internet connection, serve all the district.
Yep.
So that's also leased from Comcast. So there are 2 parts of fiber, but both from Comcast. Both are leasing.
And we didn't buy the fiber.
So what was that E-rate issue that we had when we put that in for
Right.
100 grand?
Right. There was when we had the initial contract, which we're past now, the initial 5-year contract, it was.
That's for the internal fiber. That's from the school to high school.
Right, this isn't for the internet connection, this is our internal network that runs
Just
school to
connecting all the
school.
schools.
Right. So when we put that in, the initial contract from Comcast had the upfront capital cost, so to speak. We didn't buy it, but it was an amount they charged up front, a lump sum, then an annual leasing fee. So that was part of the negotiated deal. And when the thing you're referring to is when they didn't file for the reimbursement for that initial charge.
So we don't own any fiber, we lease it, okay. So we're just asking to increase the lease.
Yes. Increasing the service.
Yep.
Yeah,
Just like TV, you have certain channel, like you want more channel. Same thing.
Actually, just before you go off that slide, you didn't talk about the professional site survey and on the district-wide wireless access.
Oh, okay. For the Wi-Fi, right now the district, 80% of the device like we use are portable device, meaning like we use
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
about 80% of the device we use are wireless devices.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we need to improve our wireless network. That's why we did a lot of. We actually hired a professional company help us to do some site survey, meaning just walk around the building, detect what kind of wall that is, if it's concrete or if it's drywall, those kind of things. Then we figure out what's the best spot to locate access point.
And that's this wireless training solutions?
Yes. And also they help us design and also implement. Also recommend the product, which is AirHab, which is an enterprise level. It's not just home use, it's enterprise grade. So can support really high bandwidth throughput.
So do they provide you with a layout and the distance limitations and what you can do with it?
Yes, we have a detailed report. If you want, I can share with you. And actually, it's interesting. We did that one last year. Before that, we did all the layout, all the site survey ourselves. We use the same equipment, which is Fluke Network, which is also an industry professional level device. When they came in here, after they did all the survey, they found out what we had in place is very good. Almost like 90% of things they said doesn't need to change. They just make a modification on certain areas because of the density of the device being used. So that's so we're pretty happy about that. So.
But from what we were reading and what I've seen, the system's really slow.
That depends on, like, for example, today, I actually feel it's kind of slow. See, like device, that is access point. That is enterprise level. For that one, if you reach close to like 30 device in your like closed environment, you will see slowness. Like I think you guys, I assume like you guys have school committee meetings here often, right? Before, if only like about like 10, 15 of you guys, you probably feel much faster. But today, I think every one of you guys feel slow. It is because that device can only handle up to 30 devices. Same thing in schools. Like the original design, like when we lay out, we work around the building. What we try to do is cover all the areas with a normal use.
Right.
But in the past couple of years, like we push out more wireless device like Chromebooks. What we found is in the same grade level, for example, like grade 4th in one school, if there's a 2 class try to use the same, teach the same content, each class take a Chromebook card, which is like has 30 device. They all like 2 classrooms like side by side. Suddenly, one access point has to serve like 60 devices instead of 30.
Right.
So everybody just feel everything suddenly slowed down. It's not like the design is bad. It's just because suddenly the demand increased. That's what we are doing now. So based on like the content area, like we are kind of beefing up the area needs the most. So we are addressing that now. This will be an ongoing process. It's never end. It's not like we do this, it's done. This will continue going. Like next year, we try to do the BLD for 8th grade, so it's a 1-to-1. For that, we're gonna focus on to improve the 8th grade classrooms, all the access point around those classrooms. We're gonna beef up, add more.
But there's a limit.
Yes, there is a limit.
No, I mean basically you're sharing, and so once you start sharing, as you share, it gets slower and slower and slower.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah. Coming to the next slide. So next one, it kind of show you guys.
Can I just stop for 1 second?
Oh, sure.
So when teachers are saying things are crashing, we can't say no, there's plenty of stuff. We have to say, yes, we hear you. Things are crashing because there's an issue when multiple rooms are using 60 laptops next to each other, using one device. We have an issue. Okay, can we agree with that? Do you agree with that, George?
Well, he or she, I don't know.
Because as much as you say to me right now,
Yep.
and I believe you, that we have a good network,
Yep.
I hear so much about how our network can't handle our current situation.
I think actually, I know
Please
that.
don't say actually, that's not true, because I hear that.
No, that's
Don't
what I'm
say
trying to say.
that.
I hope I was on the table when people complain, so I can answer every, because there are so many scenarios. Every single one, I probably have a reasonable answer for you. I'll give you one example.
Right, and the reasonable answers I totally understand. But if we're going to have design and we're going to expect things like technology in our classrooms, we have to not say, we don't hear you, teachers. We have to say, we hear you, and this is what we'll implement. Either the math department has to decide during a period, only this group can use the computers, or everyone will be jammed. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, we have to listen, understand, and fix. Is all
Yes,
I'm saying.
actually, let me answer you this. The reason I'm being here, that meaning like we are listening. Because of that meeting, we take it seriously. Like I was asked here to answer some questions. I can give you 2 examples. One is in high school, one is in Burbank. Parents probably could tell this. Last year, when we first started like this push out not only BYOD and also the Chromebooks, I think along the English department, is that true? In that about like 10, 20 classrooms, we notice some issues. Like, depends on what location, where you sit in a classroom, either you close to the hallway or you close to the window. The signal strength you got is different. Like people will drop off, like some people work. So after a lot of research and look into the data, so what we figure out is, we have to put in a single access point in every single classroom in those 10 classrooms, which is what we did.
Great.
After that, we don't hear any issue from those classrooms.
Perfect.
And same thing in Burbank School. Along the, Pat could know this, like along the 117, along that, there are a couple things. One is there are so many neighbors, residents. They have strong access point. Their signal actually coming through the wall to our school. So our device, when they put up, not only see our device, they actually see the residents. So there's a lot of inference. So also same thing. What we figure out is what we need to do is put single access point in every classroom. Then lower the power, like the signal doesn't transfer long, but only stay in that classroom, which also solve the issue.
Right.
So those are the issues. Those are the ways how we address this issue. So we do listen, and when we listen, we analyze, then we find out resolutions.
Thank you. Perfect.
So how close are you to that?
I have another question for you.
Yep.
Do you keep report logs for data monitoring?
Depends on what kind of data.
So for anyone who's supposedly having a problem with the system, whatever that is, and they can't get on, they get pushed off, whatever the issue is there a central place where they go to enter in that information on this date and this time, this
Yes.
happened?
Yes, we have a system it's called ticket system. But what we learn is sometimes teacher is too busy with teaching, they don't really have time. But if they call the local ITS or the media center person, tell them exactly what happened, those people will help them log a ticket, then we can go there to look at. Actually, that's how we found out the issue at high school and also at Burbank. So when people really log that one, we will actually go in to investigate.
So they have to know that when they do have problems, they really need
Yes.
to report them.
The issue is the user experience everything, no matter good or bad. They have to let us know. If they report the issue, we will address it.
Right.
But if they just talk to among themselves, talking to other teachers instead of go to the right channel, we will never know.
Right.
So-
I hear that.
Is that system advertised? I mean, maybe they don't know that there's a certain.
The system has been in place for 8 years.
We've worked really hard. I just want to jump in for a second if I can. The Web Help Desk system, when I first came about 6.5 years ago, nobody wanted to use it. It was, it was really difficult to get teachers to use a system and report. And then probably by 3 years ago, okay, I'll do a ticket and you get the eye roll. But really, if you asked Chi to produce data, if you wanted to see that, you would see that that ticket system is well used now. You do get the teachers who all go into a building and they'll say, oh, this morning it was really slow. And I'll say, did you do a ticket? Oh, no, not yet. So it's hard. I don't think it's the same as being in business, where you can do a ticket right off the gut. You have 25 kids in your classroom. You can't do the ticket right away. But we do have ITSs in the building who hear about it, and sometimes they'll log the ticket for them.
Is this an online ticket?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's accessible anywhere, anytime. You
Yeah,
can even do it from home. Actually, there is
Yeah,
an app.
I've done it on my phone. Yes, I have. There's not an app, but it does show great on a smartphone. So it's been a process to use that Web Help Desk system, but it's certainly in place and it works very, very well. And it's very hierarchical, so that, for instance, if a website is blocked and a teacher wants it unblocked, that ticket goes to me throughout the district. It goes right to teaching and learning. So if it's something for a math site, I can look at Martina and say, Martina, someone wants such and such unblocked. TNL approves it, and then it goes to the principal, and the principal, because we want the principal to know what's being unblocked in their building, they actually approve it. When that's approved, it's unblocked.
How long is that process?
It sometimes could be a half an hour, or it could be a day, depending on the process. And if I want to look at the website and I have questions about it, if I think it's on one of the lists that maybe leadership, doesn't want blocked for a certain reason, then I have no problem going down to Michael and saying, Michael, can we look at this or talk about this? So.
And also the good thing about that system is everything involved will be notified in real time. It's like you can see anybody you think important or related, and every time there's an update, no matter what kind of update, everybody involved will be getting email automatically. So it's kind of real time.
And while we're on it, every other ticket, like I'll get Smartboard tickets, but most of the other tickets go directly to the building ITS first. So they act like a triage, so that ITS person can look at that ticket and say, gee, is this something where the teacher just doesn't know how to do this? And I can go down there and show them and train them how to do that? Or is this something I can go down and fix in 5 or 10 minutes? And if they can fix it in 5 or 10 minutes, they do. If they're out straight teaching classes, if it's a K through 5 ITS, then they're gonna look at that ticket and go, I'm not gonna get that till that tomorrow, so I'm gonna click elevate, and it goes to the tech staff. Or if it's too sophisticated, they elevate it right away and then it goes. So it's a pretty well-oiled system.
What's your aging backlog?
So what?
What's your backlog on your tickets? Like how many?
It depends. The time I set for my staff is 5 business days. It has to be resolved. But if everything goes smoothly, what I mean is that if people open the ticket, then the first ticket goes to ITS, and if they cannot resolve, they escalate to us very fast. Then our team get in. Things normally get resolved within 1 or 2 days.
How many open tickets? How many open tickets
Oh.
do you have at a standing point in time?
Right now, just now I checked. I think about 113 something ticket. I checked that this afternoon. But among those tickets, mostly are like we're waiting for the parts or we're waiting for like a client reply. Meaning sometimes we ask, because in school it's not like in business. We cannot just walk into a classroom and start working to interact their class. So what we do is we ask the teacher to tell us what time good for them. Then we go there to work with them. But sometimes teachers just never reply to us. So the ticket just sitting there could be like months. And so.
Well, not usually.
No, trust me, there are months. So total, like as of this afternoon, I think there are about 113.
Okay,
so.
Thank you.
And I do trust
So can I go on to the next one? So the next one is just a slide. Long network actually is the bandwidth. Yeah. Above it. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So this is a picture is a bandwidth usage for our internet. So the blue color is a download usage, and the red color is upload. It's hard for you guys to see, but actually the bandwidth we paid is 200 meg per second for both download and upload. And on the far left, that's February 2014. On the far right, that's February 2015. So this is a whole year of usage. If you look, like in the middle, that's kind of in the July to September, that's kind of the summer. So you can say very obvious, they're very minimum usage because school is off. Since in July, we implement something to make the BYOD very easy for people to use. So students can just bring their own device, come here, put in the password, they can just get on our network. Before, when we do the pilot, they have to register their device, a lot of those stuff. So after the summer, when making it easy for them, you can see it's very obvious. The usage jumped a lot. Before, like, we can go from 200 to maybe 250, but after September, the top can reach to 450. So that's how much increase. Not only because we push out more personal Chromebooks, mostly because of BLD. Because I have a separate data, I know what kind of network consumes the most bandwidth, which is BLD. Yes, I have real data. It's not just single.
Oh, I'm not questioning that you don't have the data. I'm sure you do. Since we've implemented BYOD, what is the additional requirement that we need in order to accommodate all of our activity?
Number one is access point blessing. So that is the issue we saw in high school, in Burbank. That's why we kind of almost redo all the site service using what the company showed us, and also with that device. Then we push out extra access point into the place where we need it, and that kind of worked.
So I guess my question is, what has BOD cost us so far?
Some extra network device.
Pardon?
Extra network equipment, hardware.
So what's the cost of that?
Down to the number, I have to get back to you.
Yeah, just if you can just kind of ballpark it, and if you can't, you know, at some other point, I'd just like to know if BYOD.
So far, like, let me think, we put in extra probably 10 to 15 in high school, another 10 in Burma, about 20 to 30 access point, and each access point probably a grand, something like that.
So about 30,000.
Yeah.
But that's only, I mean, if you're looking to implement it totally, this is what, 10% of the project, and you've got to get more? Is this 50% of the project?
This is ongoing.
It's ongoing.
Right now, like all school, everywhere, we have well covered. Right now, we kind of address the place without issue, and next year, we're going to focus on the 8th grade, because if, you know, budget approved, you know, we do the one-to-one for Chromebooks, we're going to address like 4 classrooms in each middle school, and if you think that gives you a rough idea how much it's going to cost.
We're buying Chromebooks for every 8th grader?
That's just kind of a proposal, you know. We're going to talk about that, you know, yeah.
And so you'd have to put an access point in every single classroom?
For 8th grade, for 4th grade. Oh, 8th grade.
8th grade.
Yes. And also maybe the surrounding areas, like, you know, if they like group together, or like probably in media center or somewhere, they always do group activities. We might like put access point there also, extra access point. And also from this picture, basically just show the download is getting impacted the most. The red color is uploading. All the picture, all the usage you see here, mostly from the backup. We have internal backup, like all the server, all the critical server. Not only we do internal backup, we also do cloud-based backup, meaning like we send data out. So that's why using upload. If you see like, you know, across the year, the usage doesn't really change much. But if we do go with this one-to-one for 8th grade, you know, the result could be changed. It's hard to predict at this point. You know, we don't know like when people have their own device, you know, what kind of behavior, you know, they will, you know, do. So that's, you guys have any question on this slide?
No, I want to hear you talk about the next one.
Oh, okay. So next one, so the support is there's a 2-tier support. In the school, we have a position called Instructional Technology Specialist. It's an ITS position, and also on the district line, which is my team, we have 5 people, including myself. We have like 1 network administrator, 1 system administrator, myself, plus 2 front desk support. Then the ITS in each school, we have 5 positions total. Those are the frontline support, meaning like when teacher open tickets, those tickets go to the ITS first, and if they cannot resolve the ticket, or they think it's gonna take too long, they're gonna escalate to us. So this is how the system works. So everything goes through this help ticket system, which is web-based, accessible anywhere, and everybody can track the status. Like,
This is how it currently works?
yes. That actually is in place for 8 years, but it just in the last couple of years we're actually really pushing it. Because before people like, you know, I guess it's just a culture, you know, they don't have time, they don't want to do it. But because, you know, we have too much stuff, too much support need now, we really have to use a system to track the status. And so, you know, I think once people use it and, you know, people start liking it. I wouldn't say all people like it, but actually it does show some result already.
Thank you.
So the next one, you guys have a question on this ticket system? All right. So the next one I want to talk about is kind of a, I think a concern or complaint I heard from that meeting is like there's lack of contact between the school level and the district level. From my point of view, I think it's not accurate because all the principals here, you know, I meet with almost all the principals on a bi-weekly meeting. You know, I go there, I talk to them, asking, you know, what kind of issues, technology issues, questions they have, what kind of need, and most likely, you know, they will tell me if there are complaints from school. And then like teaching and learning department work closely with all the teachers and also all the ITS. You know, I don't know how frequent, but I would say like weekly at least. Then I meet with teaching and learning department not on daily basis, but it is on weekly basis. So from all the school level to the district level, I think the communication is very smooth. At least I think I know all the issues. That's why, from that meeting, I'm kind of surprised some of the, issue like.
Well,
so
I could see how you would be if you're not hearing any of it, but we are, so.
Yeah, that's why
I guess
think,
it's kind of, you gotta look within the current system that you have and figure out where it's either not really working the way theoretically it's supposed to work, right? Pardon?
Ongoing, yeah.
So you just prove the point, right?
Yeah.
And where maybe you can, because you're gonna have to reach out to those folks, and there may be only 20 of them who are upset, but.
That's
whatever,
true, yeah.
But yeah, they may be vocal and they may have significant need, which is why they're vocal. But I think you gotta resolve that.
So, just working on communicating that.
And I think
That's
response
so much
time is one of the concerns I had heard. So I'm gonna leave that, because I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm in.
It's interesting that you say that, because at the roundtable that I was a part of, there was a wide array of folks representing elementary, high school, and it was the complete opposite comments that I
I would
had heard.
expect you to say that, Kevin.
Yeah, no, honestly, it was. That the response time has been really quick, and that they, we talked about the number of people servicing all of the buildings. They said that they said they had seen an improvement, and that was from primarily
That's
high school
good.
folks.
That's
Who had
great.
said that the response time was really good.
That's great.
But I would also agree, from my experience, 8 years, yeah, it's been a process, but the
Yeah.
last 3 for sure have definitely had a major impact.
Yeah, I think like you said, probably, it depends on who, brought this up. Maybe, this I don't know. But overall, like I said, I try really hard to keep contact with school level to hear complaints at least from the principal. But maybe, later on I can, work with Cindy more, maybe, talk to teacher more directly,
Well, hopefully some of that subsides now, right?
One of the things that I think we can do more of, we have a teacher site where teachers can go to for almost everything district-wide. One of the things that we can do more of, I think, is report out things like, how many tickets do we get, how many are resolved, things like that, that they too can have facts that they can see regularly, so that whatever their perception, it can more inform their perception than we do right now. Because right now we don't publish that information.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you how to do it. You guys just gotta figure it out, right? You just gotta get
But
to
I
your
think,
customers.
Yeah, I think a key issue, I understand, actually we do treat them like customers, and that's what I keep reminding my team, well, customer service. But one thing is key for everybody to realize is we have a system in place. It's critical for everybody to follow that system.
Right.
That is the key.
Right.
If any part of that system is broken,
Right, you don't know
Not
unless
so.
they tell you.
Exactly.
Right.
And also they have to follow up. They can't just open a ticket and forget about it and think someday just magic show up. It doesn't work that way. There's 2 tiers in between, and also in sometimes, we have only 2 frontline service 7 buildings. We just couldn't physically be there, all the, be everywhere at the same time. Sometimes we do have to ask some basic questions. If they don't answer us, sometimes things could get delayed. So.
Thank you, Chi. We're going to switch a little bit to digital learning side of things.
So, so as I go into buildings and I talk to teachers and ITS and administration, what I hear all the time is, when are we going to have more? When can I get more? When can I have, I only have 4 or 5 Chromebooks in my classroom. I want the whole class to have Chromebooks. So I hear that a lot. I've heard it, a long time. But other than the infrastructure, because obviously you can't add more devices like that unless you have a robust infrastructure. So that's a huge consideration. But you also have to begin by asking, well, what's the benefit to our students to have them have a device that they put into their hands, that they go home with, that they use all the time? Why do you want to do that? And I think a lot of districts in Massachusetts and throughout the country are asking that same question right now. And I know that I have a couple articles here. and I can just start here and you can pass them around if you want. That research is really just beginning because it hasn't been going on that long. But what I think is that we really, as we all know, technology is not going to go away. There's just going to be more of it, and it's going to be changing all the time, and our kids need to have certain skills, and we need to prepare them. So we need to offer them a 21st century learning experience before they go off to college, before they go off to a career, and they need to have it to be consistent access to those resources. So one of the things we want to do is we want to give them more opportunities to be able to create and collaborate and communicate ethically and safely. So the international standards for technology education are actually 4 C's. They're create, collaborate, communicate, and just went out of my head. But all of those things we want our kids to be able to do differently with their own personal device for learning. They're used to playing, going home, and you see them probably, I don't know, maybe if you have kids or not, but or yourselves, you play games. And that's what you get used to when you're using that personal device. But the essential thread in all of our technology standards, K through 12, is technology is a tool for learning. But unless you hand them that device and teach them how to manage that and use it for a tool for learning and really take ownership of it, you're not going to see that, carry over. So we want them to inquire independently. We want them to be able to research effectively, skillfully, find and locate information, discern good information against bad information, and then analyze that information. Reading digital text for deeper meaning. One of the articles that I just passed out is an article about how the brain actually reads with print versus on a screen. If we really want to prepare our students for their future and for next generation assessments that are online, for having a device in college or at work that they're going to have to look at, they need to read for deeper meaning. So the article kind of walks you through, an author wrote that and cited some studies in there about how our brain is actually, with a book we get to focus and we get to remain quiet and we really get into that book. But as soon as you put a screen in front of most people, they start to skim because there's links and there might be ads on the side and they get taken off task and it gets unfocused. But next generation assignments are going to require students to read text and focus on that text and not be distracted. Digital curriculum, Martine and I went to a little conference in the beginning of the year in Boston, and all the textbook companies were grilling us about what we want because they want to take their textbooks and put them online. So if that's the case, we need to have our students be practicing what is it like to read something online and really stay focused with it and not be distracted. It's a training process. Some are good at it and others not. Maybe we'll find that our younger kids, because they're used to looking at screens, are, but I don't know. I know myself, sometimes I have to print it out because I'd rather see it on paper because I didn't grow up in that digital age. We want to, could you go back? I'm so sorry, Lita. We want to make sure that if they have their own personal device, then they personalize learning. So they're storing their own files, they're storing the work, they're carrying it. Let's say if you started at 8th grade, they're carrying it to 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. They now have an electronic portfolio that they can look back on and build and reflect on their own work. And that also leads to self-directed learning, because they do need to maintain and organize their own files and their documents. And again, we talked about the next generation assessments, but essentially it's putting it in their hands so that they can use it academically and not just for games and socializing, and letting them make those socializing loops in school and not when they leave our doors, because they do happen.
So do we teach them how to use these devices?
Mm-hmm. It's like all devices, or you're talking about?
No, you're
Chromebooks,
saying
or?
that there's a difference in the way they learn from digital than they do from print. And
well, that's research that's just coming out. but it's being focused on because next generation assessments are going to be online and digital, so it's really just new research that's coming out. So we really don't, because I don't think any of our students have that much access to practicing with digital.
So as we start to implement a more digital learning environment, this is something I'm gonna ask you to jump in on, or just tell me to shut it down. There are gonna be kids who are, so they're looking at these screens, and I know exactly what, there's all these little things that are distracting. It used to be like open classroom with all the noise. You had to be able to focus on the teacher because the open classroom was just so cray-cray. But what about the kids that are having trouble focusing now anyway? And then we introduce that type of a learning environment. How difficult are we making it for them? And so the only reason I bring this up, oh wait a second, let me finish my thought. The only reason I bring this up is, I would hope that when you put your proposal together, that you would look at those students that are having trouble in that realm anyway.
Yeah. So the other article that I gave you talks about how technology, when done one-to-one appropriately, with professional development, with guidance from the teacher, but only when you do one-to-one, will lower the achievement gap. Because it works best with kids that are struggling. And we see that with the iPads that we put into special ed rooms. When I look at the statistics of how much the Chromebooks are being used, for instance, in the middle school, the special ed are filling out that those are the ones that are using Chromebooks daily. Because they're finding that there are things in there. There's ways that you can, have them focus, but with guidance. With guidance.
What is your name?
My name is Cynthia Larson.
You're Cynthia Larson. Thank you.
My title is Coordinator of Digital Learning, and I also coordinate a lot of the professional development. I chair the PD committee.
Now, have you seen any of the reading? I mean, I know you're talking about self-directed learning and everything, but have you seen any of the writings that they have where, like, all the high-tech people, they are sending their kids to school where there is no technology because everything, the basics, they got to know the basics, they got to know problem solving, they have to do it. And they're saying that the kids need to figure it out themselves and not have the computer do it for them.
I remember talking to you about that a couple of years ago. I haven't really heard anything more about that, and I wonder myself personally, is it because they have so much technology in home because they're high-tech people?
No, actually, they don't.
I don't know.
They signed contracts saying that they will not have technology at home.
I don't know. I do know that, like I said, when our kids leave these walls, they will be exposed to technology. But they will be asked to do jobs that we don't even know about right now, and it will involve technology.
But if they're depending on the electronics and they're not thinking for themselves, what good is it?
Oh, I think they do have to think how to use technology.
Not if they're depending on it. I mean, you go into McDonald's and you press the hamburger. I mean, and they can't make change. So I know my fear is that they just become too dependent on it.
I guess it's debatable.
It is. I mean, I would rather see, when you talk about digital learning, I would rather see it in high school, where we have those odd classes where people can learn languages online, or they can learn, advanced whatever online. I mean, I can see that more at the high school level. I mean, at the elementary, I think I'd rather see them learn the basics.
I disagree, too.
No, that's fine.
To just put another viewpoint in here. I think this is, you're speaking my language, Cynthia Larson. How you are putting the self-directed learning and the personalized learning, that is having 3 children who are incredibly different from each other. Just in my experience, this is how each of them are reached. This is how one in particular, I could say she has, since the introduction of technology in her classrooms, has become different. And and engaged, and this is for at least the elementary schools, because I can't speak because I'm not in high school yet. The way that we have found a way to reach her.
I think if we teach kids to just go to the internet to get information and that's it, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. But when we have kids doing coding and creating their own things, that's real critical thinking skills that they have to do to figure out and navigate. That's one small example. And I would say, being fortunate to have $1 million worth of brand new technology, we want to make sure that the kids really are engaged in the learning process and they're manipulating the technology and not just using it for some of those things that you mentioned, the distracting factors of multiple things coming at them. But really, how can we engage learning? And then I think to Cynthia's point, I think there'd be training for kids and staff, because one of the things that we see in reading is that kids are utilizing active reading strategies like sticky notes. Well, how do you use that when you're looking at something online? How do you interact with literature online? That is going to be different. So I think there would be a level of professional development everywhere.
I invite you to come into any of the labs, but really, when you walk into a computer lab and a second grader shows me how to use code to build a snowman right before my very eyes, a second grader, I feel like he's manipulating the technology, that he's not dependent on the technology. That technology is allowing him to create. It's amazing to me. I don't know if you read that we did the hour of code, but it just puts a light bulb in so many children's heads, and the room is so focused and so engaged. It's amazing. So
I think, Lauren, when you're pointing to me, I think if we're taking technology and adding it to what we're doing, and making kids sit at a desk for more time.
Right.
But I don't think that's it. It's replacing other methods of doing things.
Right.
So, and along with Nicole said, I think with kids who have some different learning challenges, it also connects them. That, I'm working on my iPad, and so is she, even though, this may be really hard for me and I can't read it, but we're doing the same thing, and that's pretty cool, rather than, she has a book this big and mine's this big because I can't do it. It connects them to, that's my opinion on that. And so I don't think it's replacing, it's making kids sit down more and be less active. And if it was, I do have big issues with that. But I think that's not the case. And we all think of it because, we have high school kids that, our technology is, they're not talking to each other. They're, down like this, and it's a communication thing. But I think in the schools it's a different thing. They still have to interact, and it's how they're using that technology. I know you were thinking, I was thinking.
is there any other questions on this slide? So I thought you might be interested to see what some of the other districts are doing. Because as I said, everybody's at this point now, or do you do one-to-one, do you not do one-to-one, do you do two-to-one, what do you do? So Westboro is kind of right where we are. They're talking about it, they're thinking about it, they're trying to plan for it. And they're doing, I think their schools are structured differently, so they're doing 4 to 6 iPads, 7 to 8 Chromebooks, and 9 to 12 right now is BYOD. So that's where they're at right now, and they're discussing it. These are mostly people, except with the exception of Westwood, that once a month I meet with the ABC tech group. So the tech directors, we all get together, and they're all going through the bandwidth issues, and our walls are made of this material, and our neighborhood looks like this, and everyone's going through all of that at the same time. Grafton does 9 through 12 iPads. Marlboro does 5 through 10 Chromebooks. Shrewsbury 5 through 8 iPads. Southborough is it says yes, and it says iPads grade 4 and Chromebooks grade 6, but actually in talking to the tech director, she put yes on there because that was a survey that we all did with each other. She's really more like 2 to 1, and they're talking about going 1 to 1, so they're in the process. Westwood is a high school that I went down with a few teachers and a few ITS to go visit. They implemented Chromebooks last year, 1 to 1. wanted to see what that was going to look like, and I'm still communicating with them to see how that process is going. They had some pretty good things implemented and some good ideas, so I thought it would be good, and I plan to go visit more schools that have implemented one-to-one, just to see what's going on, what it looks like, what we can learn from them. Any questions about that? Okay. So we were talking about if we did do the one-to-one that we would start with grade 8. And those are the numbers for, those are current numbers of 7th graders actually. So why start at grade 8? Well, my reasoning for that, or other people that I've talked to, is that it's a smaller, more manageable learning environment. As you know, there'd be a higher staff to student ratio to do that training and practice and guidance that we were talking about before they go to the high school. These students are students that are familiar with the Chromebook. They would have already been using them for 2 years. And then why the Chromebook? Well, traditionally, I've learned over the years that computer labs with traditional laptops, where they're pushing them on a cart, take up a lot of classroom instruction time because you're taking the laptop out of the cart, and then you're opening up the laptop, and then you've got to boot it up, and teachers who have a 40-minute class, now you've got 10 minutes into instruction. Just doesn't work well. But a Chromebook has a 7-second startup. So just out and open, and the battery life is anywhere, is it 8 to 10 hours, Chief? For battery life? Yeah.
Probably
But
average
it
like
brings
6
you-
hours.
Yeah, but it can bring you through the day. So if it's charged at night, overnight. And we are a Google Apps for Education domain, as you know. And the power in that is the collaboration, the tools that it offers you. Let all students collaborate and communicate online with their teacher and with each other and create products. And the cost is obviously a lot more sustainable than it would be if you had, laptops. It's probably, in my mind, and as Westwood put, stated when I went down to visit, I said, why Chromebooks? And I think it's true what they stated. If you can reach 85 to 90% of the content that the kids need for less than a third of the cost of a laptop, then that would, and if you're a Google Apps domain, enterprise, then that would be the way to go. And I'm hearing different schools that have gone with iPads with the high school, and they're running into issues because of that flash, and it doesn't run on programs. So what would we need to do that? Well, we would need a lot of professional development. We'd need time for teachers to be able to focus. And we'd want the professional development to always be aligned with the student goals. Of course, the curriculum itself, but also with the goals that I stated in the first slide. So we'd want to have teachers designing and implementing and practicing more project-based, authentic learning experiences, connecting with outside experts. We want them to promote self-directed and inquiry-based learning. And we want the teachers to have time to explore other online educational tools and resources that they can bring in and use. Throughout Massachusetts, every once in a while, there's one coming up in March in Kingston. There's a thing called the Chromebook Institute. So the plan would be take a small, and it's on a weekend, unfortunately, but take a small amount of teachers, ITS maybe, myself, go down, learn from a Chromebook Institute, come back and do our own institute here, get a summer academy going, of course doing online support all year long.
Could they do like a train-the-trainer?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
Well,
good.
all of our ITS have been, went to a 2-day training last year with, and actually Martina with some of our teachers went to a 2-day Google Apps training camp. So they're really well versed in Google Apps and its capabilities. And Google Apps also, I think I added notes to the slide, and you can get it on the Staff Start page. They have third-party apps that you can add. So, for instance, someone didn't like all the templates in Word and wants to do something fancier for their kids to produce online. So we got Lucid Press. So Lucid Press looks like Publisher, but it's like Publisher on steroids, because now you can embed videos in there and you can look at it on a, on a smaller device. And we have there's add-ons and there's extensions. We just added on dictionary into the Chrome browser, so that when a student logs in and they're reading something on the internet, they double click on a word they don't know and a small dictionary pops up and they can hear it read to them as well. So,
Can I say something?
yes.
Is this the only part that we're going over tonight that has no dollars associated with it? Or,
Well, the dollars for the Chromebooks will be about 80,000 for the.
Well, we would propose to buy, the program is proposed as an ongoing initiative. So we propose to buy the Chromebooks the same way we buy other equipment with a 3-year lease type of basis. So the total cost for the supply for the first year is about $80,000, is that right, Chris? Is that correct, 80,000?
No, I'm just thinking if it's a,
No, the first
For the
year, the
Chromebooks.
capital cost for the Chromebooks.
yes, roughly, yes.
Okay, so that would be a separate lease for this initiative outside that regular equipment lease. So the approximate cost of that would be about, on an annual basis, would be just under $30,000. So depending on the interest rate, somewhere in $28,000 to $30,000 range. So that's what the cost would be this year. And if we continue to do it every year, ultimately that cost would somewhere be in the $75,000 to $90,000 range. We buy them over 3 years. So as we built it in, phased it in each year, we'd have to add a new lease. But by the end of year 3, so next year's 8th graders, when they're in 10th grade, their Chromebooks will be paid for. But the new 8th grade class will be starting a new lease on that. So therefore we'll have. So that cost is capped after 3 years. It's a 3-year phase-in.
So it's gonna cost $729,000 for 260 units?
No, that's special education numbers.
Yeah.
That's not my slide.
Okay.
So it's about 80,000.
It's actually something,
$78,000.
I was thinking that number.
So it's about $27,000 for our lease for the first year. So, as I say, the program overall, the ultimate cost, when it's totally phased in, would be about $80,000 a year. And ultimately, that would have us with 5 classes, 8 through 12, after 5 years, with Chromebooks.
so that's currently a part of the budget?
Yep.
That's
It's in the technology budget.
proposal?
Yep.
We didn't get a sheet like this for it, like we did for the other categories.
No, it's in the, I can point it out when we get to it on the budget sheet where it is.
We'll
Thank you. Okay.
My concern is if we're having trouble now having 2 or 3 classrooms running 30 Chromebooks at a time, how are we possibly going to
So
sustain that?
we're working on that now.
Yes, that is something like my team is working on. We're actually
So if we
looking,
get,
What does that mean?
I'm not a technology person, so I don't get the whole point thing as much, but if we put one of those every place we need to have them so that we can have the speed and everything we need, is that budgeted?
Yes, that's
this-
in our
this is
annual
in
hard,
this
that's in our
budget.
annual hardware lease. In other words, we would be whether we went with this program or not, probably, we'd be adding access points, that's the plan.
Yes.
So the annual plan adds access points, so these access points, at least some of them would be directed towards the Chromebook program, like she said in the earlier presentation, the idea of putting them in each of the 8th grade classrooms in the 8th grade. So the answer to the question is yes in this budget.
Did the 8th grade teacher say, yay, woo?
They certainly did.
Well, George can speak for his. I know I was at, where is it? He's gone. I was at Story the other day, and I was talking about 8th grade science and foreign language. I mean, have you ever been in a foreign language class over at Sawyer? I mean, it's filled, she uses technology all the time. But I said, so what do you think? Oh my gosh, we're so excited. I mean, if you look at the usage of the Chromebooks in the middle school, you'll see that, so each grade level has its own cart. So when we do a survey of how often are you using it, so science is using it once a week, ELA twice a week, social studies once a week, but they have to share the cart. So the students are getting exposed to it every day, but it's 2 days they're using it for ELA and 1 day they're using it for science, it's shared.
So G, the wireless training solutions, the layout that they made here, is it to have access points in every single classroom?
that is, they actually said, ideally you will have a single access point in every classroom. But the cost is kind of too much to implement all.
So have they phased it at all, or have they just given you something for today? What does this design plan look like?
Right now, like we did that one last year, in the middle of last year. So we told them what we use. We have a card in each grade level.
Yep.
And based on, and also we told them we plan to do BLOD. Based on that, they give us kind of a layout for what we should have. So we
So are they gonna go back and give you another layout
They-
to put your full capacity, or are you just gonna keep adding on?
No, they wouldn't. Basically, they told us how to use the tool and also how to use the software to like if we want to expand on certain areas, we have the tools and also the means we can do that ourselves. And that is what we are doing now.
What is the tool you're using?
Like the hardware is called Fluke Networks. It's kind of a device you can detect the signal. Like you basically you carry a device and you walk every single room and you detect the signal strengths. Then you can, if you know, for example, in this classroom, and also the classroom next to it, you can have two cars, and the signal strength in different parts of the classroom is not strong enough. Then we know we have to put extra access point in one of the classrooms.
Does it take the whole network into consideration, or just what
Yes.
you're using?
So that's why it kind of take time to redo it. It's not like you can just simply add one to here. When you add one, it actually impacting all the surrounding access. So you have to adjust the signal strength, how long. So it takes some work. Actually, takes a lot of work. But that's why we all often hear people from school level just tell us, "Oh, why don't you just add access point to my classroom?" And then we told them we just couldn't do that. And also when you do that, you have to take down the whole thing. Now what we do is we come in over the weekend, we kind of adjust, we take down everything, then we adjust every single one. So that's yeah.
Good question.
I hope it's quick. I'm not sure if it's George or Chi, but I'm looking at your computer hardware line in your budget.
Yep.
And I'm looking at the $270,000 requested amount.
Yep.
And I'm seeing 5 lines.
Yep.
And I'm looking for just a very brief on each one, just for some of us who are not acclimated with your systems here. You've got a reduction of $63,000 on the fiber lease, and then you've got the new one-to-one pilot lease.
Yep.
And just really quick. Like what is the you've got an existing 2-year lease, the new lease that's proposed is 80, but then you've got the 30 for the one-to-one in there as well.
Right, that's our, the other 3 leases have been going on for at least 10 years. Those are our annual hardware and network hardware leases. So we buy somewhere between $200,000 to $250,000 a year of hardware and network equipment, and we finance them over 3 years. And this is just the year 1, year 2, and year 3 costs of each of those leases. We've smoothed them out. They used to be a little bit different each year in the $85,000 to $90,000 range. We smoothed them out at $80,000. The fiber lease was what Lynn asked about earlier when we initially bought the Comcast intranet about 6 years ago. We had 5 years that we had to pay the $63,000 lease for the startup cost, so to speak, and the $30,000 is the pilot program that Cindy's been talking about for the last half hour or so.
So 30 is the pilot, and the 80 up top, the new lease proposed, what's that one? That's the one we're just...
Those are the annual one-to-one. I'm sorry, those are the annual payments in each of the lease.
Okay.
Those are 3 different leases, so we finance over 3 years, so there's 3 payments.
So those are existing.
Those are, 2 are existing, 1 is expiring, so 1 would be new.
Thank you.
This is probably a good time to take a short break. There is a very small, not small, there are pizzas in the business office. So if you go in one door, you can kind of create a little bit of a line and eat and come back in about 15. Right? Sounds good. For those of you new to the building, bathrooms are down the hall to the right. Our next topic is special education. This is an area that obviously in terms of meeting students' needs, we do our very best to make sure that the IEP meeting works to gain consensus. And sometimes that means that our decision is that the best placement for a student is to have an out-of-district placement, either at a private day school or residential placement. This year, we both see an increase in students who need out-of-district placements, and we have a structural aspect of our budget in terms of how we paid for collaborative placements that we have collapsed together, and we see an increase of $729,000 in this line. Probably the largest increase since I've been here, and so it's certainly significant. Our special education transportation, you may recall that last December about this time, we actually transitioned to a new provider. It was a seamless transition, and we very much appreciate what ABC and Vanpool did for us in terms of coming to rescue the contract that went dormant with the prior provider. And so, as planned, as part of that contract, that increase is 2.26%, or about $21,000. So, it's based on a set amount for the vans. We have them all day, and so it's really something that works well for us overall. Just in terms of the conversation about the position that we've asked for, these are pieces of information that we thought were helpful in terms of the numbers. We are currently at about 473 students. That's an increase since FY11 of 407 students. So you can see that we've had about a little south of 70 students more. The piece of information that's critical for the team chair inclusion in our budget is that as part of the process, you have what they call a referral process, and as part of that, you have what we call an initial evaluation. And so the team chair is responsible for that. They are also a school psychologist. And so right now, our initial evaluations on average exceed about 70 students so far this year. And so when you think we're just a little bit over half the year, that's a considerable number to have to address. And so having the additional time, having the additional team chair would improve our ability to stay under the 21-day requirement for having the IEP process concluded. That is, from the referral to the evaluation process. It would definitely help to aid in that timeline. Currently, we have 4 school psychologist team chairs. They're spread out by grade span across the district. And the additional person would help us meet those legal requirements, as I talked about. But not only the legal requirements, one of the things we've been trying to do is really, because currently our team chairs are located here physically in the building for a number of reasons, space being one of them. But also organizationally, it helps us to get continuity of what decisions are being made and how they're being made around what learning disabilities look like and so forth. Before this model, and it precedes me, there was a lot of differences between how a student might be identified with a learning disability that differed amongst the towns. And so as we looked at parity, as we looked at trying to make sure that we were giving the right programming, but also identifying the kids in the right ways, we saw this as an opportunity to train our team chairs, make sure they had a district perspective. So now everybody at grade K through 2 at least is evaluated by the same team chair across all 3 towns, and so we know that the approach to identification is the same across all 3 towns, and that's very helpful. Additionally, there have been changes in the requirements for special education. We now have the requirement of RTI, response to intervention, and we find it invaluable to have the team chairs, because they are school psychologists, to be part of that. That's a building-based initiative. It's really a general ed initiative, but having their expertise, having their knowledge about the assessment process, about special education, about the strategies to help kids, it's really valuable to have their expertise right there at that table. So that's an additional part of their role that 5 years ago did not exist. So it's a time squeeze in terms of getting everything done that we need to have done. On the speech and language and occupational therapists, right now they each work with almost over 45 students each, which is a considerable number. Again, as we talk about personalizing learning and building opportunities for consulting with classroom teachers, that we think is vital to classroom teachers, making sure that they can teach in a seamless way to what the specialists work with. We think that's an important part of their role, and that's a changing and evolving aspect of their role as well. So we would like to see that number reduced per caseload. That consultation is critical. Obviously, we want them, and they need to have time to do their IEPs, and also meeting requirements. You know, it's important to have them at the meetings. We just don't want the test results. We want to have their physical presence. We want them to be talking to the teachers, talking to the parents, and that requires time out of doing services. So to be able to get all of it in, it's necessary to increase our FTE over those 3 types of specialized services. Any questions about the special ed piece? I have here some information about the caseloads, just to give you a perspective of what they are. It's hard just to see them as single numbers because you don't, and I don't know the complexity of each individual child that you're seeing there, but these are the IEP caseloads for the positions, as we're talking about adding, as we discussed earlier, adding another special educator at Center School, for example, and at Florence Sawyer School, to continue to build that model where we have a special educator per grade level. Our own research suggests that having the most qualified individual with the students with the most need is going to improve, to reduce that achievement gap. And we're seeing some very promising results already at Luther Burbank and at Hale Middle School, where we've already initiated that, and at Mary Rowlandson, where we've initiated that model. Questions? I should point out we also now have it at the high school, because we also have 1 per grade level at the high school as well.
You said that we could speak to a physical therapist?
We do. Yes. The only position currently we contract out for is visually impaired. It's very difficult to, because of the amount of time that you have, that we need somebody, to be very difficult to actually have somebody under employment. They prefer to be in the contract world.
So, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, all of the things that has dollars and cents next to it is set out of our control. There's nothing to debate or discuss.
It really is. Those are decisions made by IEPs.
Right, okay. So the only thing we're really talking about as a discussion issue is to add the 2 new positions.
Correct.
One's at Florence Sawyer and one is, help me out, a
Center
Center.
School.
Okay.
So there's variability there. There could be variability around the team chair. There could be variability on the 1.0 FTE for the related services. Thank you. But again, you know, pretty much the IPs drive those, and if we don't have those, it's just going to mean that we're going to have larger groups of kids together.
And the reason why there would be Center and Florence Sawyer and not Mary Rowlandson is because Mary Rowlandson already has that
Correct. We
position.
did theirs last year.
Okay.
We added that.
Do you know how many kids are out of district place?
I will get it for you. I don't want to guess.
Okay. I'm just curious as
Yeah.
to how many kids make up that amount.
I believe it's in the low 40s, but I will get it for you. Other questions? All right, so I'm going to transition to teaching and learning. So our budget is flat as we move into the FY16. Really the only shifts that you're seeing is in terms of salary. The salary line for teachers under teaching and learning is going up primarily because we used to have for many years we had 2.0 ELL teachers. Then for budgeting plans for FY15, we reduced that to 1.6 based on a reduction in caseload that we were seeing in FY14. That caseload has blossomed this year tremendously, and it's shifted in communities. And so we had to respond in order to meet the law, and we added back the 0.4 to have 2.0 again for full-time Unit A educators. We also added some time to a para for the high school, because what we were finding is it was all of our schools, elementary schools K through 8, work on a 6-day rotation schedule. The high school works on a 8-day rotation schedule, and so it was very difficult for educators to to say, I'm going to meet with a child on A, C, and E day, because the high school doesn't have A, C, and E day. And so we realized that we really need to centralize and have a staff person there. So we did put a full-time instructional assistant at the high school. And so that's an added, that happened in FY15, and we're carrying that forward to FY16. The other aspect of our work in teaching and learning is geared toward working with our teachers, working with our principals, and developing their skills and the professional development that's necessary. Cindy earlier talked about essentially the digital learning initiative, and overall how we want teachers to know and understand and be able to use technology in not only the planning side of things, but also the instructional side of things. So there's a lot of work that has been going on, and a lot of work that will continue to go on based on our assessment. And we do review every PD opportunity. We are diligent about surveying the results of our staff and what they feel they gained and what they feel we need to work on. That information is fed to our PD committee, which is made up of teachers and administrators, and that's how that cycle continues to inform itself. And so next year we'll be focusing on, right now, although the final plans have not been made, the instructional strategies piece, which is critical. We want our teachers to be current on the best practices, especially because of RTI, but also content workshops. We hear it, we understand it. It's a little more challenging to offer content in-house, and so, but we hear that regularly, and we are continuously trying to offer more. We have many teachers within our district who offer great content workshops, but as always, there's still more we can do, and we're trying to figure out ways to do that. At another place in time, we'll be having a conversation about time and when to do that and how to do that without impacting the budget or the calendar for lots of reasons. So we'll be having that conversation at another time, but certainly that's a critical piece. The other big initiative that we'll be working on for next year involves STEM, and our STEM coordinator, Martina Kenyon, is here. And so I'm going to ask her to speak to this slide.
Thanks. So you can see here that the two main curriculum budget drivers in teaching and learning are related to STEM, and they're both directly connected to updates that have either recently occurred or will occur in those areas. So the first is to continue our transition to the updated Massachusetts math frameworks. So we've been working toward that for a couple of years. Last year we worked on adopting resources at the middle school level, and so this coming year we're looking to pilot updated elementary math programs. So our current plan is to continue a pilot that we actually began K-2 this year with an updated everyday math program, and we have a small committee also looking at other programs, trying to narrow a comparator to everyday math for next year. In addition, we're looking to continue unit development work that we began last summer at the middle school level. So again, I just mentioned that we adopted updated resources for the middle school. So the goal here is to use an understanding by design approach, which we've used throughout the district, to create units that incorporate, among other things, the resources that we recently adopted that are aligned to our updated frameworks. And then, like Michael said already, we plan to offer content-based professional development in a variety of formats, both to support teachers in using whatever updated resources that we get, but also to support learning in terms of transitions to this updated math framework and all the sort of new teaching practices that go with that. And at the secondary level, we're going to bring in hopefully some professional development that's focused on math-specific instructional strategies. So bring in some experts from outside of the district to kind of work on that with some of our teaching staff. Second, we're preparing to transition to updated science, technology, and engineering frameworks. And that kind of looks like the three actions that are listed there. First, we expect to update our resources, and because we're looking to do that K-12, that's something that we anticipate lasting, and a transition that we expect to last for a few years. That for next year will be in the form of text-based resource updates as well as digital updates, and we're also looking on the school level to update some of the equipment that we use, particularly in the middle school classrooms for next year. Actually, and I shouldn't say that, and the high school classrooms as well. We've budgeted at the school level for that. Again, in order to use whatever updated resources and equipment that we get, we want to support our educators with content-based PD. And finally, we'll look to continue some curriculum committee work that actually began a year and a half ago. That has the goal of creating teacher experts prepared to help our district transition to the updated standards. And right now that's focusing on building expertise in the areas of those standards that are the most new. They're called science and engineering practices that kind of focus on not just the content knowledge that students have, but what actual successful science and engineering students do in the classroom in order to actually use that content. So we'll continue that and begin some unit development work as well over the next year. Short, but hopefully any questions we can answer.
And I want to just clarify too, to back up a little bit about professional development so that people have understanding and perspective. Our teachers are great about going out and finding their own content where they have their personal interests and so forth, and they do that on their own, and it's great. However, when we have, for example, when we roll out a new program, essentially we have, the requirement is that the time that we roll that out is during paid time. And so we really only have 8 hours in any given year of early release time, plus essentially roughly 14 hours of full day PD that has the flexibility of being planned for things like this. So roughly 20 to 22 hours of PD to address sometimes very depending on the year, competing demands around learning how to be evaluated, learning how to use a new technology tool that we're asking them to learn to use, learning to implement a new curriculum. And then when we get it based on grade span, now we're creating, K-5 is ready to do the new math textbook in a year. 6 through 8 is ready to do their math textbook or to do a second year kind of to review and refine, but now they're ready to do science, and so we're just playing the science teacher out. So it's a very complex matrix of making sure that everybody's getting what they need, but also that we're moving towards what we need to do in terms of consistency across the district. And we have a summer academy. It's not a requirement. We offer many of these initiatives through that, but it's not required. And so we have teachers who can't make those dates, and so they don't get those pieces of information that are critical to developing. And we do have, essentially, we hope to have at least somebody from every building represented, and that they're going to go back and they're going to do some training in their buildings that's on a one-to-one basis, but it's not the training that was by the publisher, for example, because that's not a required training. So those are some of the complexities we deal with and struggle with, and I think when you hear sometimes that teachers feel they don't have enough training, it's because those 20 to 22 hours get eaten up very quickly. They're out of the control of the PD committee, they're out of my control, and they just do. And so much of our PD, I would say at least 50% of the PD we actually offer is not required PD, because it's during the summer academy, both in June and we offer one usually in August as well. So that's a challenge, and it's not unique to us, but it's just something that in terms of understanding where we are, I thought that would be helpful. So that brings us to the conclusion of the big buckets list, if you will, of the monies that are in the budget. And we certainly want to make sure that you have your questions answered if you hadn't asked them as we moved along. So this would be a good opportunity with our principals and directors still here to ask those questions. And if we don't have the answers right now, we can certainly get those information for February 25th.
Where to begin?
I'll start. I'll start. All right. Well, first of all, I did a little of my own digging, which is never a wise thing to do, and through the DOE website, was able to make a per pupil total expenditures.
A swag?
Something like that. I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here. Bear with me while I try to articulate myself. This could take a long time. I would like your numbers on that, if that is possible, because looking through the budget and assigning my own, what I thought was administration and what I thought was instructional leadership and what I thought was professional development and guidance and counseling. I came up with a cost per pupil for each of these areas. Seems to me like we are well within the norm, for lack of a better word, and not even norm. We should be far and above the best freaking school district in the state. So I would like your, and maybe it's something that you and I sit down and we, you can see if I, did it correctly. What I saw the last couple of days going through the budget packet and the meeting packet, aside from the digital learning piece, I can't say I'm all that inspired or motivated to give any more. It's not out of the box or, programs that I could get excited about, and that's why I'm here. That's why we're here. And then to move on to a different topic, because I think I said all that I needed to say there. Can we be the district to redefine SPED?
Redefine it?
Yes. You and I have talked, we've all talked about this and how SPED encompasses a wide range of kids. And when you talk about narrowing the achievement gap, it comes across as the kids that we're trying to reach at the top of this achievement gap. We don't want them to go any farther because we need to narrow that gap. And we need to bring everybody up. The kids who are at the very top that we need to challenge, and they deserve a special education too. And right now, what I see is, a kid who he's so good at math. He's crazy good at math. And he's got the decimal system down great, and he can multiply decimals like nobody's business. To give him challenging work, we give him a sheet of decimal numbers that are just longer than the kids who are learning to multiply 1.2 times 1.2. This kid gets 3.56 times 3.56. And can we reach that kid too? Can we include that kid in this budget?
I think we can. She stepped out already?
Yeah.
So, our plan is to expand our enrichments that we offer. And I'm not talking about the top of our performance grid, if you will. I'm talking at each level, where can we find ways to enrich kids and engage kids to make them want to learn more? And so, Laura Dwyer is our enrichment coordinator and extended learning coordinator, and we're not just looking about after school, we're talking about in school.
In school.
And
Because
so-
right now, going from grade to grade, that kid just has to reach a minimum,
Right.
and then our job is done. And that's
Right. I would not say our job is done, but
No.
I hear what you're saying.
my kids have been just crazy blessed with really great teachers, and where they're struggling, that teacher will work with me and my husband to make a curriculum designed for that kid.
Right.
Where they're exceeding, that teacher can try her best, but she has, other things that are more important.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've already started. I know we've got a moot court activity for kids at the middle school level. We're trying to do a lot of different things, and it's small. You and I have talked about it. It's kind of surprising to me, coming from a state that has gifted and talented as part of special services.
Let's be it.
We can.
Yay!
We can. It's another step, and we took the small step by we have the position. So we'll get.
Will she be
growth.
talking to us?
What's that?
Will she be coming in and speaking?
She would like to, actually, yes. Yeah.
She would like to, is she?
Yeah.
Those are my questions. And I will show you, if you can just hand that to. So,
I can prepare for the next time our breakdown of cost centers.
So you're saying you want to redefine special ed, or do you want to repurpose our motto? Which is, we will teach every kid to their highest potential.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess I want to go even higher than that, Lynn. I cannot believe, coming from a whole different state, that Massachusetts does not have a program for gifted and talented. Yeah. And I don't want to call them that, because I think every kid, has their own specific gifts. But of all states, I can't believe Massachusetts doesn't. So I want us to tell Massachusetts how it's done.
Do you have a sample?
I could bring in several, yes.
And you should.
I do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have questions on how, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but I would like to have some assurance that some of the funding that goes to many of the existing programs and the requested programs is going to move the bar on some of the standardized. I know we all hate standardized testing. I get it. Nobody likes it. But the fact of the matter is, that's how we're measured. And that's how other districts see us, that's how the state sees us, that's how the parents see us. And so I want to know how we're going to increase some of these standardized test scores, and specifically in my town, how that's going to be impacted, because it's on the wrong trajectory. So when we get to the point where we're going to start picking through and negotiating and discussing, I need to know, and we could say that everything that we're spending money on is going to, but that's not true. So it has to have direct impact on the teachers and the way they're teaching, And I just need some assurances because I'm getting questioned on it, I'm uncomfortable with it. So I need some assurances there.
Certainly the math piece is a big part of the work that we're doing around Math PD. That's a big piece. We hired the math specialist in Bolton. We're doing that in Center. We already have it at Mary Rowlandson. And we've seen very positive progress at Mary Rowlandson. It's been there for a year at Florence Sawyer. So those are two pieces that we believe are value adds.
I think Mary Rowlandson is pretty impressive because their scores have gone up. Where are you? I did my own little graphs because I'm anal like that. But when I look at my town, I'm really disappointed, and that's why I don't want to go too crazy here. But frankly, when I asked you when we were going to have the opportunity to speak with our own principals, you said it was going to be this meeting. Yeah. And I'm just not sure that you have the data with you, so that's why I'm suggesting,
What's your question relative to the data?
My question is, I'm looking at MCAS scores, and I only looked for the past 5 years.
Sure.
And I don't see Florence Sawyer School going up, I see Florence Sawyer School going down.
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure exactly what graph you're looking at. I will say when it comes to accountability, using and I addressed this board in the fall when we talked about MCAS, Florence Sawyer School last year made the annual PPI number. You know, the difference between us being a level 2 and a level 1 school right now is the fact that it's over a 4-year trend. We had enough PPI points last year in the annual PPI numbers to be level 1, but it's over the 4-year trend.
But to be respectful to you, I don't care about level 1 and level 2 because
I'm sorry, I thought that's
No, I really don't, because to me, if your school is an exceptionally high-performing school and you're a level 2, to get to that level 1 is could be impossible. I'm more concerned with the actual numbers, the data of the MCAS scores in all of the subjects. Because when you look at us compared to the other schools, it doesn't feel right. And frankly, I don't know what's going on in Lancaster, but you guys got it going on because things look really good. But what's happened in my school is it hasn't done this; it's done this.
And again, I don't know exactly what graph you're looking at.
This is from the MCAT. I mean, this is right from the state site.
Thanks.
And Joel, all I want to know is, what are we doing to address these scores? I mean, we have plus classes, individual teachers do what they can, but what are we doing to address these scores on a school-wide basis?
Well, I mean, and again, not to single out schools, but I mean, in terms of performance, we're at or near the top in every category.
Look where you started from.
Lynn,
Look where you started from.
No, but your point Lynn's point that we're going down, so are a lot of the schools in our district, and that's also a function.
But you know what? Don't do that. I don't care about Lynn, and I love you, but I don't care about your school.
But that's
right now.
That's also a function of the test, from test to test, from year to year. That, I think our performance continues to look consistent, relative to the percentage of where we are relative to the state and even within our district.
I don't know, because this is, again, only a 5-year look. If you went back further, the numbers were better.
Well, again, I don't have that data, so I don't know. But I think that our performance has remained pretty strong. When you look at the report card, for the district report card from year to year to year, we continue to be in the highest performing category in our in our like schools. When you use the DART tools, the district analysis and reporting tools, we continue to be among the top tier of schools that we're compared to.
Well, then maybe I don't understand how to read the data. And that could be it. I'm not being wise. That could be it.
Could bring the MCAS scores back on 25th.
But that wasn't the, go ahead, Steve.
Well, it speaks to what, I had a question, and it speaks to what you're both talking about right now, so forgive me for interjecting.
No.
But wasn't there a couple of years ago that one of the grades performed very poorly on, I think it was ELA, and I remember there was a discussion at one of these meetings about this group of kids, and I was looking at your initiatives now, and this is where I would need confirmation, but it looked to me like that group of kids that performed poorly in that bracket was getting, essentially, this is the special educator that's coming in at that level. And so to me, I wasn't sure if that was deliberate or if that was just coincidentally convenient to the problem. So that was one of the questions I had. And again, forgive me for not having the exact, I think it was a 4th grade class 2 years ago, so it would be maybe the incoming 6th grade. But again, just trying to put connections to things.
Well, the 4th grade didn't do well when we looked at the results this year.
Okay. So I thought it was.
But it was bad. It was
really bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that would be, is there a way to boost, what was the problem there? I know that's $1 million question, but I guess is that kind of what you're speaking to in terms of there's a problem sector. Maybe it's not such a blanket, and obviously there's district trends and things like that, but here's a very specific, for whatever reason, gap in curriculum or whatever it is can we address that in the numbers? Forgive me, that's where I hear this conversation kind of going, and I had the same question.
No, that's okay. I'm not trying to sound evasive. It's not necessarily an easy question to answer. We test students in grades 3 through 8, the only school in the district that does that. So you're factoring in, where pockets of achievement are, where pockets of growth are, where pockets of areas that need growth and achievement are, in ways that you're not necessarily comparing with other schools. What I meant by your graph, when I look at it, that in terms of each class, each grade level is a year unto itself. Mm-hmm. And when you look at it from year to year, we're right there with the other schools, if not exceeding them.
But look at your own school, not within the look at, like I always tell my kids,
no,
worry about yourself, not all your
friends
friends around you.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you doing year over year?
Yeah, and again, from 2012, 2011, it looks like in ELA and math was a high point for us, but there's been 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 percentage points increased since 2012 in mathematics. From what looks like 70. No, I guess that's.
The data's underneath.
5 or 6 points.
I mean.
Oh, down here.
But you're starting here and you're ending here. You're not starting here and ending here.
So.
You're starting here and you're ending here on ELA. You're not starting here and ending here.
So the short answer to your question is, what are we doing about it?
Right.
We look at our MCAS results. We look at the things that we do well and where we can be better. When we look at our middle school classes, for example, and Nicole talked about the achievement gap, it's a significant issue for us with the number of kids that we have. You saw it in that graphic, and where we need to support them, and that's why we're looking for extra support in that area. We, this board was generous in supporting us in a math enrichment specialist, and we have seen significant growth and achievement in math, which is why one of the areas that I attribute us making our annual PPI to. And so, and I know that you're basing that just on MCAS, but MCAS factors into the PPI, and the level 1, level 2, factors into, it's determined by MCAS. So the supposition that we're not growing in MCAS, just that data point doesn't tell the whole story, I guess, is my answer to that.
So you gotta make sure the parents know that, and the other towns know that, and I just would like to see the numbers higher. And again, this is not fair because it's only 5 years. If we went back an additional 5 years, it would tell a different story.
And again, I think it would tell the story for a lot of schools and a lot of school districts.
But I don't care about the other ones. I care about you. Are you taking other questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Thank you. Does anybody else have questions?
I have a question.
Why don't you
Can
do
I go
yours?
with it's
Yeah.
about Nicole? So Nicole, I didn't totally get your point. So I wasn't sure the exact number, so I looked it up. But in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we rank 192nd out of 327 schools for total expenditures per student. So we're low. We're very low. We're in the bottom 1/3 of Massachusetts schools' expenditures per student. And I think even the high school is lower than our middle, and I don't have that number right now, but I'm pretty sure when I did that math last year, it's much lower.
Not much lower, but lower.
It's lower than all the other schools. So when we talk about approving the budget and spending money, we don't spend a lot. We're kind of TJ Maxing, you know, the situation, which is great. But if it's uninspiring, it's because we're getting just the next level and not the level above it, which I'm not opposed
But
to.
you're not equating that to money spent, are you?
No, but I'm just saying, if we can only spend a little bit, if we only want to increase this budget by 1%, then everybody has to only give me one thing. If we say, okay, we're comfortable with the 4%, maybe we'll get another cool teacher to do another cool program.
But why would we do that and not take a look at what we're currently spending and if we're putting our current
I
budget
assume that
in the
they're
right place?
doing that job, and I assume that when we look at the budget, we are trying to understand that as well. But I'm just saying, when I heard your comment about approving the budget, it concerned me because we are a very cost-effective school.
I do see what you're saying, and I do want to sit with you and show you how I came to my numbers.
This is from, I'm more than
Oh, no,
happy to look at your numbers,
no.
you can send
Yes,
it to me.
yes.
But this is from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website.
Yes, and I will say, in the average for Massachusetts on my list here, we are below. Yes, Massachusetts must have some, you know,
The top school
some
spent 33,000.
some
The
outliers.
bottom
Okay.
school spent 10.
So
we're only $2,000 more per student than the bottom school and the left. So
In fairness, I think it includes the vocational schools, which is a
that'll-
different set of, you know.
well, Grafton was.
But a really simple way to do that would be to just take our total budget and divide it by our total student population. And that's roughly what it is.
yes.
I mean,
And
not
the one
to
thing-
negate what you did, Nicole, but that's.
Yes, and so
that's
I
it.
think
But wait,
what
can I add
I'm more
one-
asking for.
Can I add one more thing?
Oh yeah.
So one more thing is, in this website, they pull in district and out of district. Our out of district students cost $23,000 per pupil.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very, very high. Some districts cost $43,000 per pupil for their out of district. Some cost $2,000. So, you know, that has to be, and that's something we can't control in our budget process at all. So I think it's very fair to say that should be pulled out. So I don't know if you did that in your numbers.
I did just what was on the DOE's website for each district. And the most recent numbers they had on the DOE was for the 014, 014, we're way in the future, for 14. And so I then put in the requested numbers for what's coming, what's been requested for 16, and applied the same algorithm to that. So according to the DOE, in 14, the cost per pupil was $13,649. And for us for 16, if we approved everything, it would be 14,322. I don't know if my numbers are even close
Right,
to
but
right.
we did have a
But-
huge increase of almost
Well, no, I'm
700,000 for special ed students. So that's a huge number.
Yes. You then divide that up amongst all of the different classifications, and you have your percentages to you and I should just sit and. Well, I don't want to
nonetheless,
bore
but I
everyone
didn't
with my.
understand your point. So what was your point?
My point was basically that I wanted Michael to go over this and tell me what my if my numbers were right or not.
So was your point we're spending too much, or was your point we're not spending in
My
the right
point was I
area,
would
or
like
was
to
your
know
point-
percentage-wise. I would like to know percentage-wise where our numbers lie in administration, in instructional learning, in guidance, in all of these
categories. You want a percentage breakdown.
That's yes.
Okay, but your
Yes.
point was we were
For
spending
a percentage
generally too
breakdown
much.
per pupil. So I don't necessarily think that we're asking for too much. No.
Okay, that's what I couldn't understand.
But I do think that within these numbers, there wasn't a lot of
Other
imagination.
stuff. Yeah. No, well, I don't want to say that, but okay, if that's the word.
Well, actually, what I got out of what you said was, you want more bang for your buck.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I still don't understand that.
I feel like
There's a lot of
we're
money.
getting like the bare minimum.
I feel that
I
way
mean,
too.
like, I don't know if that's just the way I'm interpreting it, when almost half of our budget is, the increase is for special ed, which we have no control over. And then the whole stuff that, George talked about, we have no control over that. We are asking for, the total number of staff increases seems like nothing.
I
compared to
totally
what
agree.
we've been talking about all year
I
long.
totally agree.
About
I
what
totally
time,
agree.
what kids need on learning, more teaching time.
And
I feel like we're asking for nothing. There's so many things we could ask for to make us a little bit better and still not, I think we're fabulous, but but really fabulous, like standing out, oh my gosh, everyone wants to come to Nashoba. But
If maybe we know if
tonight.
if a part of this, of the money that we can control, if there is, some top heaviness in certain areas, we can maybe shift a few dollars here and there.
There's really.
But I
Does
feel like
anyone
that's
feel
what
that
the
way?
teachers and the administrators all did. I'm sure you had a long list, a dream list, and then you said, realistically, what can I really ask for? Is that how it works? Kind of? Don't you have like a?
No, it's not a dream list and then pare back. We look at need, what's our current need? Last year, year to year, what's our need?
Right, but if you had unlimited funds, there's certainly things you could do to make it, like, this would be awesome. Because you're a realist. I'm a dreamer.
It's needs-based. We work,
Right.
Michael works with us to do needs-based budgeting and not a pie in the sky and come down. It's realistic. What do we really need to move our program forward?
And do we just want to maintain, or do we want to progress?
And do we hit those minimum benchmarks? It is pervasive. The what do we need? We just need to get what we need, and then we can consider our job done. It is a pervasive. I can't come up with a word. It's a pervasive.
Describe it. What are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say that right now, I don't know what I'm trying to say. If we're just looking for what we need, and then we consider our job done, we're not moving forward.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
too.
I think, Kathy, you and I agree on most everything.
Oh, gross.
You're gonna talk to me about gross.
Yes. I think it's hard to sit in one meeting to talk about budget for FY16. We obviously have a vision ahead of us. I think the steps that we take sometimes do feel incremental. If you were to go back in the last 10 years with our budgets to see where we've come, I think you've seen that we've we've really worked towards a lot of those things. We talked about enrichment and talked about gifted and talented, and I think you'll see that we, with the enrichment coordinator being hired, with the closeness that we're working with her to build that in. There's no secret. Michael's not hiding the secret that that's an area that we not only in our district but I think Commonwealth are really working to build upon. So it is hard to see. I think where how far we're going, because it sometimes seems like it's in small steps. But I think if you look at the pockets of even just the positions that are being advocated for tonight, I think it speaks to Lorraine's concern about, MCAS performance, speaks to my own concerns about MCAS performance, but also speaks to educating the whole child, the enrichment, the core academics, and honestly the whole child. But yeah, it's hard to kind of.
And that's what I need to hear more of.
Sure.
To be.
I think the other piece.
I am not an educator. I sit in awe of every classroom teacher that my kid has been in, and I know that I don't know how to do it. So I need it articulated to me, like I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think the other piece is that.
But still respectfully.
I think the other piece is that we're still looking out to not equate dollars to betterment. I think we're looking at how we can build capacity among the people who live in our communities who are experts in fields, and how we can bring them in for two reasons. One, if they know something more than maybe a content teacher, they're going to provide a lot of enrichment to both the classroom teacher and the students, but also it's their money that's funding our schools. So I think that's another thing. It's not just the school budget that we're approving. It's looking at the other ways in which we accomplish that.
You have a plan for that?
Sorry?
You have a plan for that?
Oh,
Yes, it's right here.
Philosophically talking about it. I have a question, Kathy, Nancy, and Julie. Did I hear right in that you feel that the ask of this budget is where it should be?
I would be happy, can I speak first?
Sure.
I would be happy if I would have been happier if I had seen more from the high school. I wouldn't have minded more dollars in the high school because of the NIAS survey and the amount of time. It only happened every 10 years. It's right now. It just happened.
I agree with that.
We got so much feedback, real feedback, detailed feedback. It's the case study of what we're missing, and I think we should act on it.
But, okay, so I agree with you on that, but the question is, you feel good about this budget, this ask?
I would be happy, I would even feel happier if there was a few more line items from the high school that were directly affected by the NIAS.
And you
That's my
feel the
opinion.
same way?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, there's definitely things that I wish were here that are not. I wanted full-day kindergarten. I really wanted it. And it wasn't even thrown on the table because of money. And but I also have been doing this long enough to know that there are enough people in town with other interests who are going to slam us for a budget that's 10 or 15% increase, and it's not going to pass. And so I want to be realistic, and I want to come up with not a pie in the sky, how can we make this magical for our kids? I want to come up with a budget that's going to get passed and that can keep us moving forward. And I guess maybe that sounds jaded, but I've been doing this long enough to know that if we can't pass it at town meeting, we're wasting our time.
Mm-hmm. So do you want?
I agree.
I agree. So I don't disagree with you, but I am not comfortable going back to our town and saying, by the way, here's your bill. And so I think there's got to be a way to look at what is existing, and I don't mean there's fat built into every budget. We all know it. And I have a couple questions on line items here. I mean, we could start with E&D if you want, but I can come back to that one because I think I understand it, but I have quite a few questions. And one is just no one's going to like this, but there's no OPEB on here. We made a commitment last year, and we said we were going to fund it $150,000 last year, and we said we were going to fund it each year going forward, given the situation that we find ourselves in, and it's not getting any better. And I know everyone's gonna say, well, are you telling me you'd rather fund retirement than, you wanna put another teacher in? Well, not necessarily, but do you wanna leave this town in a situation where in 5 or 10 years, you're at a $22 million deficit and you gotta hurry up and make it up? How's that gonna go over? I mean, a little bit at a time, if we could just commit to find $100,000, George. I know it's in here. Find it and stick it on the line item for us. But let's not be irresponsible. That's irresponsible to me. The other question I have is, where is the revenue from the full-day kindergarten? We increased full-day opportunities so much this year, and I don't know where that is.
It's in the page that says grants and offsets.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
So it's the 425 for this year.
Yep.
And does the cost per student to the families, is that variable year to year based on our per pupil cost, or has it been a flat rate?
It's a flat tuition rate.
We've evaluated every couple of years,
Yeah.
though, based on our overall cost and set the rate.
And so how much is it right now?
3,100.
It's 3,100, and how many students do we, well, I guess I could do the math and figure it out. And so that makes sense. Okay, so now we know how much that is. All right. The school choice. So I see on here, it's 1.3 million for fiscal year 2015. The revenue. And I thought it was going down considerably. Maybe what you were talking about before was the difference between the money in and the money out. Is that what you meant?
Well, what I said was, you talking about the last meeting?
Yeah.
What I said was it's going down from 1.3 to 1.1.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is it went down from 1.3 to 1.1 on the budget. So in other words, it's being reduced $200,000 in this proposed budget from this particular current fiscal year.
But this assumes that we have school choice at the high school.
Well, it doesn't, because, again, this is a long explanation, but we have money in our school choice account. For the most part, with the exception of kindergarten, we've spent our money since I've been here, so that money coming out of our revolving funds is in one fiscal year and out the next fiscal year. So we actually probably could sustain not exactly that much, but close to that much for one more year, because it's from this year. In other words, the revenue we get in this year would be available for FY16. So if we did not have it in FY16, you wouldn't really see the big bump until FY17.
Right. But you also said in the last meeting that you don't use it. You have a little bucket of money there that you don't deplete every year.
I don't think I said I had a little bucket of money there. I said I think the way we spent it is we spend it from 1 year to the next year. Okay, so this
Do you
year,
deplete it every year?
No, that's what I'm saying. It was purposely we don't deplete. That's why I just said what I just said. But we are starting to deplete it now if we going at 1.1. Okay, we're going to be spending in the current year. We're not going to have that year cushion that we set ourselves up to have after this year.
Okay, so is that cushion part of your E&D, or is that a separate?
E&D is a totally separate issue.
Okay, so that's good. And then, so we still didn't answer well, not you answer, but we still have to talk about the school choice at the high school level.
Right, but that decision won't impact this year's budget. It'll impact future years' budget.
And it won't impact this year's budget because we're having school choice next year at high school?
Because there's
No, because we're using the money that essentially we know we're getting in now.
Okay.
Most of the money we use for the subsequent
You pay it
fiscal
full.
year is earned during the current fiscal year. It's our general philosophy. We're not 100% on that, but we're pretty close.
Okay.
So at what point do we have the discussion, and I guess this is for Nancy, at what point do we have the discussion about to keep school choice at the high school or not?
We talked about this at the last meeting. It typically happens in March, and the discussion usually starts in the policy subcommittee. We don't have to do it that way, but that's how we've done it for as long as I've
Oh,
been
we did
around.
talk about that, so.
And the other thing, remember, even if we were to eliminate school choice in high school, it's still a gradual process. So
Right, which is why I love it. Because you're not cutting my arms off.
Well, maybe not both of them. But I mean,
That's all right, take a finger at a time, I'll get used to it.
They start going fast.
All right, so can we talk about E&D? So anyway, we need to, wait a minute, we didn't even have the discussion about what we're doing with OPEB. Are we, can you
Well,
build?
I think the commitment we made last year that I recall.
Oh no, here we go.
The commitment I made that I recall is that we considered E&D appropriation at the end of the fiscal year based on surplus that we had in that fiscal year. But we didn't talk about specifically budgeting for it. We talked, because last year's $150,000, remember, that was a surplus in our health insurance account at the end of the year that we appropriated. So we said that we would consider each year that account, which we certainly can do, and you can decide, and it ties into the E&D discussion. So in other words, at the end of the year, like we did this year, we can come to you.
I like that. So that's kind of like, well, if we have it, well, if it happens to show up at the end of the year in that line
Right.
item, but if nothing, but if it doesn't show up in that line item, then we're not going to do it, then we're not making a commitment.
I don't think we made a commitment, do I recall, the budgeting for it.
I don't recall it that way either.
Sorry.
The other thing,
I gotta back George on this one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
the other thing is,
I think it's short-sighted.
well,
That's a
I mean,
different
what's
thing.
really important to understand is it's not statute, it's not a requirement by the state in any way. It's an accounting standard that they're asking to implement over time and phasing in over time. I don't know where the towns are, for example, but I think this would be a good conversation for Tri-Town to kind of get in the same place with all three, four entities, if you will, because it's
But the
It's a
towns,
huge
Michael,
commitment
don't
to build
have,
them.
the towns do not have the number of employees and the number of retirees.
I hear
that
you.
we
I'm not saying
But
funding it is not
proportionally
a,
it's similar.
yeah, that's true, proportionally. I'm just saying, in terms of, because you said earlier, you made the statement, I'm not comfortable billing my town for this. It essentially, if we put it in the budget, it becomes a bill to the town each town for a third of it. If we can just do it at the end of the year through a 1% end of the year issue, we're doing it.
I hear you.
We're doing the same thing.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I don't have confidence in that. I don't believe that will happen. I think we like to say all these nice things and we hear it and it sounds great, and then it come to the end of the year and it's kind of like, didn't we? Oh no, we never said that. So I don't have confidence unless it's on paper in the budget, defined for me. I don't have confidence. So I am going to tell the rest of you guys that I think we should have it in there. If you all decide you don't want it in there, then I've done what I can, and everybody gets to own the responsibility. You don't care 3, 4, 5 years from now, but it is something we have to deal with. And every single time the auditor comes, he brings it up. Well, why is that? I don't care if it's something the state says we should or shouldn't do. Obviously, they say we should do it. They're not mandating that we do it because there isn't anything on the books right now, but it's only a matter of time before we find ourselves with a problem anyway. So I love you and your technology, but at some point you're eclipsed, All right, so that's that. And we can move on. I've made my statement.
Can I just add my point of view to that?
Yep.
We're all talking about things that we wish we could have. And if that's only $150,000 is $150,000 I'd rather spend some other way. My 2 cents. I would much rather have a new teacher or a new coordinator or a new whatever than I would put it into a
But
savings
see,
account
that assumes that we're not, here, my whole issue with this process, and this is why I need to spend some time with a few people and just go through it. My issue with this process is we're only looking at the 5.17. 5.17?
It's down at 5.07, but yep.
5.07. So we're only looking at that. We're only looking at that as a variable. We're not looking at the 50 million that's here. Well, we can't touch that because, it's salaries and it's benefits and there's all these other little hidden buckets of money. And so I say, I think that's great that we don't want to restrict the district in the requests, the additional requests, but I would prefer to say, okay, if we really feel that strongly about that, well, we need more. What else are we doing right now that we can pull from. And I know, George, you're gonna say, are you kidding me, we can't pull from anywhere, but I can't say that or agree with that because
It's not my decision, Lorraine. I'm not
Lorraine, we
gonna say.
do look through every FTE, we publish it and it's there. We go through that. We've eliminated positions that we don't need based on enrollment. We do that every year. Again, personnel is 80% of our budget, so that's a big nut to crack. And it funds, in this case, it funds almost a third or almost a half of the new positions because we're cutting out three positions. So, we do that. We go through that process so that we make sure that what you have first is what we absolutely have to carry forward. It's called level services budget. The pieces that you speak to around MCAS, we've identified very specific events in each year that we've invested in. These last couple of years, it's been the special education positions, the math specialists, because those are targeted areas we want to improve. You can't see improvement always in one year, but we see like what we're seeing so far, and it's worth going a few more years to see what's going to happen. If it doesn't net out, we're going to take another look at it, and we'll make changes as necessary.
Okay, so let's talk about E&D. In my limited knowledge of it, I thought I had heard that E&D was it was over $1 million, that it was closer to between 1.5 and 2 last year.
It's north of 2, it's 2.2.
It's 2.2. Why are we showing $1 million right now?
Because that's how much we're recommending we spend.
So we have 2.2 million in E&D.
That's our closeout, that's all the money we have. It's like, if we spent it all, it'd be like spending your checking account and savings account, everything down to 0.
I get it.
Okay.
Just another thought? Discount it. I don't care. That's fine. It's good. Thick skin. I don't mind. If we have to go back to our town, if we have an issue in the district and we need $2 million, that's a significant event.
But we're spending $1 million of it.
But what I'm saying is in order to carry that much more, if we have a 2.2 million.
That was our closeout last year.
Okay. And it's there because, well, we need it. That's the only cash we have. That's what we need if something goes wrong. That's the point of it, right? It's free cash, supposedly. Is that it?
Yes, but we also use half of it each year.
You use half of it, but then you still have a little over $1 million parked there.
Yeah. Right. That's about 2% of our overall expenditures.
I know. I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
The towns have a similar thing too.
The towns actually have a higher
I
percentage.
get it. I totally get it.
Because we're restricted to 5%. In other words, we can't have more than 5%, but the town's can have an unlimited amount.
Right.
No, that's not correct. They recommend between 3 and 5.
They recommend, but you don't have a legal. Cambridge has like 230 million. So the
Well, I wish we had 2.
I know, but it is correct. You can have. I'm not saying you have an unlimited amount, but statutorily you can have an unlimited amount. There's no limit statutorily on how much you can have as a town. The school district can only have 5%.
I understand that.
Yeah,
Now, you mentioned you're spending $1 million of it, so is $1 million going against the $2.5 million of the 5.07% increase, or where are you
$1 million is our is what we've been spending in recent years.
But where, all right, well, where's that $1 million going? Are you applying $1 million to your budget increase?
It's part of the revenue stream.
Yeah.
It's not to our increase. It's part of the revenues. It's been the same part. It's the same percentage of the revenue. Well, not the same percentage. It's the same component of the revenue stream it has been in recent years. We're not upping it or lessening it. It's the same.
No, but my question is, you're recommending a 5.07% increase, which translates to $2.5 million.
Yes.
Is that $2.5 million is going to be distributed against the 3 towns, or is it $2.5 million less the $1 million out of E&D, which then will get distributed?
No, $2.5 million.
$2.5 million is what's being distributed amongst 3 towns.
Okay, so you're not applying any E&D towards.
No, we are. If we didn't,
it comes out first.
Towards the budget, but not towards the increase.
Right. If we didn't apply
right?
E&D, $3.5 million would be applied.
All right. Okay. And to the question of OPEB, I'm on the part of the finance committee team, and we're discussing about starting to fund some of that, because eventually, while it's still not a requirement, it's going to be a requirement someday, and probably by the end of this year, the town's going to be $400,000+ in the hole So we're looking to fund at least a little bit of that and trying to find ways to fund it on an annual basis. Some of the implications are town treasurer and accountant looking at it, that at some point, even if it isn't a requirement yet, there's a potential that if you're not at least starting to fund it, at least from a town's perspective, that your credit rating could be in jeopardy. And while that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot as far as real percentages when you go to the bank to borrow, from a psychological perspective, a lower credit rating in your town can wreak havoc on valuations, which is home prices.
Just, this is like a mini trade town as long as we're weighing in.
Yeah.
Stowe is started last year with $50,000 and a commitment to do that every year. And as you said, we have a lot less employees. So 50,000 compared to 150,000 is, we're on the low end of that. But that's the kind of commitment we're making to it because we do realize, and it does affect your credit rating. And it does, if you can get a AAA, we're a AA plus or something now. If we could ever get to AAA, and because you're doing that, we're going to be a lot better off with long-term borrowing, which we're going to be doing.
They're going to look, I believe, only at the fact that you're funding it. They're not necessarily going to look at whether it's coming out of your budget as a funding line, or if you're doing it at the end of the year.
Right, and I don't care either, I just think we need to make
funding
commitment.
Right.
Then there's a commitment to funding.
Because all of you people benefit from it, not me, all of you. I think it's a mistake. Is this something we need to vote on? No, we can't vote on it. Let's put it in the budget.
Yes, you can vote on
You vote on it as a part of the budget, not as a separate thing tonight.
it. Right. Yeah, tonight we were in a workshop, but yeah. Other questions, comments? A little bit of a sense of the committee, not what's in the budget, but the 5.05%. Is that an amount that you're comfortable with, or you'd like to see some additional amount to, granted it might be different for what you want to spend it on? I'm just looking for some direction for February 25th, what you'd like prepared from me and from my team.
I don't know that we can come to an agreement on that, but,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because what we could do is we could do the opposite of what we normally do. We're usually coming to you with a proposal for tiers of reducing the budget. I can come to you with tiers of adding to the budget.
No, it's not going to pass.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just throwing it out there.
well, I can understand why you're saying that, because every comment that's been made around the table has been
more money.
Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? And that was where my comment came from, that we have to remember that we have to pass this budget, and that there are lots of people in our communities who don't have kids in the school and who don't want their taxes to go up, and so we have to balance that with all the good stuff we all want. And I'm not saying that we can't get any more good stuff, but I'm saying that if we do want to get good stuff, we have to work really hard to make that happen. And it's not going to be an easy sell to go above 5%, in my opinion.
The 5% is going to be. I think 5% is going to be I almost said a bad word, to get through.
Okay, so that's surprising to hear that being said, because everything we've heard tonight has been, we want more, better, want more.
But that doesn't mean that I don't want Perry to have his 5 FTEs that he needs. And not because he's my favorite. Because Perry needs help. Joel needs help. But I would rather us look at.
So how can we do that without?
Well, then I would turn to George and Michael and say, of your 50 million you currently have, give me a couple. Where can you cut? Where I know you laugh about it, but really, I don't believe there's not cushions everywhere.
She's laughing about me and
I'm
Josie.
I mean, I guess you're making an assumption that we've got all this, as the expression I think you used was fat to cut, and I'm not sure
Really?
that
Do you think you
that's-
could go through this budget and explain all of these sections and line items? Because I have to say that there are quite a few of them, and I'm like, well, what's really under there? I don't know where certain things are. I don't
So
know
that's
how it's set
good.
up.
That's what we're asking for. Ask those questions. This is
Oh.
the time.
Well, no. I mean, there's no way I'm going to sit through 5 hours of this, drinking from the fire hose, and have all the questions on the tip of my tongue.
Well, you
I
don't
need
have to
some
do it
time.
tonight.
Exactly.
It could be.
Right.
I mean, we're meeting again in 2 weeks,
Right.
and we're not going to be
And I'll be
approving
ready.
the budget. That's what this time period is for.
I mean, if you have, I mean, first of all, well, I like Perry and Joel just as much as anybody. I like Kevin and I like Patrick and I like Sean.
Patrick's a turncoat.
And I have to work for them.
We don't love you anymore.
So, you know, we look at this as a packaged budget and really try to make sure that we're focused in on.
I'm saying it's a package budget. Does that mean, like, what does that mean?
It means that sometimes, you know, we have to make decisions that tip the scales in terms of essentially what we're going to leverage to get results at those schools. But I've got to get results at all of the schools. I can't just say
Right.
I'm going to get leverage only at Bolton and only at the high school. And you know, it's got to be balanced. You know, there are some years where it's clear there's more need and we're going to invest more. Overall, we do invest more in the high school overall. Is there a way that we could reorganize some of where Perry has already talked about spending money and spend it in other ways so that we could have different number of FTEs? I'll have that conversation with him and see if he would like to do that. That's always possible. But as I'm hearing now, getting more than 5.05% is probably not likely
No.
to get out of this
At
committee.
least not on this vote.
Right. So, you know, I don't think there's fat in this budget. I think that it is very much geared towards the needs we've already identified.
I'm not suggesting there's fat in what you're asking, the additional. I'm saying the 50 million underneath is
No,
what
I hear you.
don't understand.
Right. But I
don't
understand it.
buy it.
And I know that's not.
So the first time I went through this process, because this is my only second time, but the first time I went through it, I was overwhelmed by the amount that we couldn't touch. There's so much that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, and I think that's the hardest part, to go back to the towns and have them understand. And it was something I totally didn't understand even during the entire first year of sitting here until we got to the budget process. There's so much that is contract that has nothing to do with what anything we have to say. The only thing we can say yay or nay to is the new additions. So that's really all we have.
No, we can say yes or
can
no to the
move-
new, and then there's some in that 50 million that is variable as well. That's not all
Right, but
fixed expense.
But like moving them around is something they've already done. So they've already moved things around to try to get where they want to go. You know what I mean? So they're cutting here, and so this is just their additional, to keep a level set budget, to keep the level of service exactly as we are today, tomorrow. And then the other.
I think what Lorraine's asking, and I think it's a reasonable thing to ask, is if in fact they are in that $50 million pot of whatever it is the current budget is, what you should be looking at that each year to see, you know, if we did it this way for the last 5 years,
I mean, that's
you know,
what these guys
can we
do.
do it a different way
All
this
year
year?
long.
And that results in X dollars of savings or the reduction of half of a person or whatever. And I think that would be beneficial for the towns to hear. You know, and to your point, you know, you do want to know where the cost breakdowns are for administrative, et cetera, which would be very helpful to understand. I'll be perfectly honest with you, a 5.07% budget presented to the town of Bolton and the people is going to be very difficult to swallow, considering when we're limited by Prop 2.5 and override is an absolutely forbidden word in the town of Bolton. So,
Can I add snow to that? The snow and ice budget this year?
oh, we're going to get crushed.
That was gonna be my,
We're going to get crushed.
it's a bad year for that.
So, yeah, I'm just letting you know the little bit that I'm hearing. Oh, by the way, I'm one of the selectmen in Bolton, if you don't. Mr. Burke, how are you? So I think, you know, the things that various school committee members are asking for, I think are what the voters are going to be looking for As I know that in Bolton, we are very averse to capital projects, spending increases. I know the tax rate number is an artificial produced number, but it's a number that's not on the right side of where we need to be. And people equate tax rate with taxes, but taxes are high anyway. So I think the more you can provide and the more of an explanation can help. But I know that I don't know where we're going to find, even if you divide the 2.5 by 3, where we're going to find 850,000.
Can I just ask a process question, since everybody else is, I won't say it's inside baseball, but there's only about 3 of us here that are not school committee or department heads or whatever. Your agenda was talking about kind of public comment, which was going to be 7:30 to, or whatever. I get just a couple. One is a question for clarification, and then something else I'd like to add at the end. I looked today at your website for the budget, and there were 2 links. One it said current year's enrollment. So I clicked on that and I printed it. And it says total district enrollment 3501. This is from your website printed today. The next page was projected enrollment 2015 to 2016. There's no total on it, but I added up the columns, Bolton, Stowe, Lancaster, and the high school, and came up with 3,292. These are your figures. I double checked I'm not a whiz, and I didn't go to Nashoba. But there's a difference of several hundred students in the system. Now, I shouldn't say at this stage of the game, we should at least agree on what the numbers are in total enrollment. Why is your projection on enrollment going down by 300?
The projected doesn't have preschool in there because we don't have any way to project it.
Right. It's missing a grade level.
So our current enrollment has preschool. Our projected enrollment does not have
So
preschool.
this is useless for comparison.
Well, except for the preschool.
Well, if you want to go through it and have to subtract everything out. Okay, preschool was about
A
100.
standalone
I
document.
think it's 168 or what was it?
Okay, but there's still a couple of hundred difference.
Well, if you take out the 168.
From 351 to 3292, from 33. All right, you're still off, but all right, you're
Like
back in the
40 kids.
ballpark.
Closer.
You're
Right,
back
but you
in the
have
ballpark.
the graduating class
Right, different
Size
Okay.
might
size
be
All right.
is different.
Okay.
So they're
Inside baseball again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Good question.
what's the process going forward for the rest of this meeting? Because if there are any other things that we might want to ask about. I know you're deliberating now or asking general questions. Are we going to have any chance to throw out any more comments? I know you just jumped in here.
Yeah, it's kind of, I've been hearing more questions from folks.
I just have a comment that I think as I said, it's like a bare bones, not asking for a whole lot budget. I have to be realistic and think that it's going to be tough to pass in the towns. But my plea, and I say this every year, we live in towns, there's not a whole lot here, especially in Lancaster and Bolton as far as, retail and stuff like that. People move to our town because of the schools. They build houses here. They're not building, 4-bedroom colonial houses for people who don't have children. So I don't understand the disconnect between investing in our schools to investing in our towns. We live here because of the great education we provide, and in order to continue to provide that, we need to invest in it. If Lancaster, Bolton, Stowe didn't have good schools, what is attracting you here? Yes, it's beautiful, there's apple farms, but I would rather go to a town where my taxes are lower and the school system isn't as good, and I get trash pickup, but I choose not to do that, to pay more, because my children are my number one priority, and that's why I live in this town. So, and I think by the amount of children who want to come here for school choice by the surrounding towns, I know that we could fill our classrooms with them, but it's because our schools are better than the one on this side and on this side, and we can offer more. So if we want to continue to offer more, we might have to pay a little more. And to me, I'm not a millionaire, we work hard for our money, but that's why I'm here. And I don't understand the disconnect between the towns and not wanting to pay for your school, because why are we in these towns? Because we want a good education for our children.
But I don't know if it's that people don't want, some people can't. So take that into consideration
I
too.
do understand that, but
You know? And I don't think any of us here, none of us would be sitting in these seats if we didn't want to do.
But we look at schools like Concord, Carlisle, and stuff like that. And wow, look at all the stuff they have, and look at their taxes, and look what they have. Because I mean, I don't want to pay those taxes because I can't afford to live there. But look what they have to offer. It's because they have high tax rates, because they invest in their schools, and I'm sure most of their budget is the school budget. You know, towns like that, and unfortunately, that's just how it works. So if we want our schools to be better, we have to invest in it. And I don't think the 5% will pass. I don't know where we're gonna cut it, but I think we need to consider that it's an investment, and I know it's a struggle for many people and a sacrifice. And I moved from a town with my 4 kids and doubled my taxes and my property, not because we doubled our salary, but because that's what I wanted for my kids, so then they have an opportunity to do even better for their kids. Maybe they'll be living in Concord, Carlisle, good for them, and I don't have the in-laws suite. But it frustrates me, the disconnect that I think often happens between investing in our schools and why we're here in the towns that we live in.
Any other direction for the February 25th meeting? And then we'll come back to questions.
Oh, so you're looking for specifics, see?
Well, I need actionable items, Lorraine.
I'm with you, brother. Can I get back to you on
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I really want to, I don't want to just hairbrain it and just throw a number out there that's
And
not
I welcome,
thought
if
through.
anybody has individual questions, I can meet with you individually, or church can, we're happy to answer any questions that you have specifically about lines.
Like maybe next Tuesday.
Maybe next Tuesday it is. Is this comments?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, Mr. Burke.
It's your show.
I'm not the chair, she is. I just
Yes,
mentioned it so
going to
you would
say
know he was
thank
raising his
you,
hand.
I think we should both await my recognition by the chair.
Oh, I thought Michael was running this meeting, so.
Oh, sorry.
But Brian, since you asked so politely, what would you like to say to the group?
Well, not much. First off, thanks very much for all of the district administration, the school committee who put this presentation on tonight. Budget workshop's very helpful. I feel badly for the principals who weren't allowed to present individually, because then they could have answered their questions and have been out of here. But I understand and appreciate from personal experience the fact that the budget workshop is an opportunity not only to hear from the various cost centers about what their financial needs are, but also to evaluate their performance and progress to an extent. I hope that the school committee will reciprocate and understand and appreciate that now, as a selectman for the town of Stowe, I probably have a much more tunnel vision and bottom line kind of thinking about what you're going to be going through over the next 4 weeks or so. It appears to me, and the assistant superintendent can correct me if I'm wrong, that, and I know he will, that fully 70%, or roughly 70%, of the budget drivers are things that we came to consider as high-hanging fruit. By that I mean the existing salary increases for existing faculty, the line item for insurance and benefits, and finally the 2.4% or so on the transportation. In my experience, and I'm not saying that you should go by it, you're kind of focusing on that 30 or so percent, which is, unless you wanted to go in and cut current funding levels, 30% or so, which is special education, new faculty hires. I think there was 3% utilities. And I think that's what you'll end up looking at over the next 4 months. Excuse me, not 4 months, 4 weeks. I do have a couple of quick questions. That 4.4% increase in present salary, or present faculty salary, I take it that's the the negotiated contract with the Schedule A employees as well as the step increases?
Yes. Unit A and C.
And-
It's everybody and administration.
All right. Then the only other question I guess I have is, and then I'll just wish you good luck in your coming deliberations and questions of the administration, and that is, when is the deficit bond funding going to end?
2 years ago, that's the good news.
So it's gone. So I saw it on the, it's a deficit bond funding as a negative.
I don't see that.
It's a deficit. I'm looking at the budget drivers, percentage of dollar increase, and I see deficit bond payment, and it's now 0.0000. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not sure whether that's on the budget drivers.
Well, it's always been there.
It's a historical number from a couple of years back, too. I mean, we still carry 5 years, so it was paid out for 2 or 3 years.
And the salary reserve, that's going down.
Well, we only use that in contract years.
So, and when is the next contract up?
2 more years.
2 more years.
All right. Again, good luck. And the towns are watching. Thanks very much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'm not wearing any hats here, but I'm really wearing 2. I am one of Brian's colleagues on the Board of Selectmen, so. But I am here, obviously in that connection, but what I'm going to ask you for right now in this document is my own work product. It has not been, is as a taxpayer resident of Stowe only. And my colleagues don't know anything about this because it isn't the Board of Selectmen issue, it's mine. But it goes to something that Nicole spent, it's been kind of danced around about, segregating out the different elements of the budget. And I used to be a personnel director in the city of Cambridge in another life, and did labor relations and budgeting for, we had a $100 million budget back in 1980 for the city. So when you say Cambridge, I know why they got all this leftover money. But one way, I'm a simple-minded guy, and one of the things that I like to be able to do is simplify things, and I get lost. I know you guys know the ins and outs of this, and that's fine, I'm glad you do. But I can't figure it out. So what I'm trying to do is not look at instructional personnel, but others, particularly the administrative positions. And I'm looking to get a listing of names, positions, base salary, and additional compensation with a total column, like an Excel spreadsheet, for each of those 2 amounts. In other words, give the base and additional compensation that was used in putting this budget together for each of the following positions. Now, these positions were listed again on one of your pages of your website with one addition that I put in. But some of them are clearly, it is listed as job descriptions. There is clearly only one superintendent of schools, sir.
Some would say there's more than that.
And there's only one assistant and one treasurer. But some of the things that were listed on here that I just lifted and cut and pasted from your documents were where was it? Technology, district technology support. Presumably that is not one person, as we heard earlier. There is a department. And the way I phrased this, it's coming to you only, and this is, don't take this offense at the method by which I'm doing this. You are under a very tight time frame. And I would like to get this material back in a timely fashion rather than in June when it's all, the dust is settled. So I'm submitting it to you as a request for public records law in accordance with Mass General laws. And the language is not my own leading into it, and the summary of it saying you have 10 days to respond. I'm not doing that. That's right out of the website. So I'm going to give you this only to facilitate getting these things back in this system, in this format, and hopefully that will allow me, as a simple-minded guy, to say Out of your $50 million, X million dollars of it is for administration, and these are, oh yeah, one other thing I could throw in there, so it's not blindsiding you. I'd like a copy of the superintendent's contract, and those are enumerated in this document, so. If I was a constable, I'd say, consider yourself served.
Thank you. Squeak away in your little boots.
Hey, it's snowy in Stowe, I don't know about here.
Not here.
Thank you.
I just spoke earlier, I wasn't talking about the deficit bond, I was talking about the high school debt service. That's what I think I meant to refer to. How long do we have on that? Thank you.
It was 2025? High school.
We double check. Anybody else?
Could I respond to Julie real quick? I moved back to Bolton actually for schools, and I think and always saw the connection between the value of my property and the fact that we have an exceptional school district. I have recently become a member of the advisory board, and for the first time, and I'm understanding the other side, which is I always went to town meeting wanting to give the district everything that they wanted because they were doing an awesome job and they were teaching my kid, and that's what means the most to me. And at the same time, that costs money, and I'm appreciating more now those limitations. And so every time it snows out there, I'm like, oh my God, it's another $100,000 that we don't have. And so I want to make sure that you understand that that it's not so much a disconnect as just a fuller for me anyway. It's a fuller understanding of the constraints and wanting to pass something good and something that's beneficial to the district, but also making sure it passes.
Right, oh, and I
Okay.
totally get that, I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I should say our DPWs have done excellent jobs in all three towns.
Yeah.
They really have. Anybody else? I want to thank the administrators and the public who came tonight, obviously the school committee for their attention to this important task, and we'll reconvene on the 25th and tackle it some more.
Thank you. We have one little piece of business.
One little business.
We just have to do the consent agenda, which if there are no objections, we will consider the warrants from, is it today's date?
Yes.
For
Friday.
Did everybody sign them?
For Friday, February 13th, 2015, and the minutes from January 28th, 2015, approved if there are no objections.
Actually, Monica?
Okay.
Why don't you take this?
And then lastly, I think we just need a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
What did you say lastly?
A motion to adjourn. Oh, all those in favor? Adjourn, yes. Good job. Oh, I did not.